Hello! It's September, isn't that cool? Wow, long time no stream. So just as a quick little thing before I begin, I'm not gonna be looking at chat much, and I'm probably not going to be responding to chat during this, but I will be looking. I've got 2 things of water here, and I've tried to rest my throat as best I can for this, and so with that, I want to say thank you for anyone who's going to listen, anyone who's going to watch this stream. It means a lot to me. I wrote this story because I wanted to. That's honestly it. I hope you enjoy Untitled. Also, I drew this. I draw most of the covers myself. This is our main character, but as a child. As she starts out as one. My vision is completely black. Pitch black. Dark. Not a trace of light. This is because my eyes are closed. I should open them since they're supposed to be open. Relaxing in the sunlight like this just feels so nice, though. The windows here are just so huge and the sunlight is pouring in, and I just can't help but let out another yawn. I've only just woken up, but I kinda want to sleep again. There's a weird smell here now, so it'd be a little hard to, though. That, and I wasn't even supposed to be sleeping in the first place. It's just that the windowsill was so sunny and inviting. I only sat down to rest for a moment, but I ended up taking a little cat nap. I'll bet everyone's worried by now. Judging by the sun's position, I haven't been asleep for too long, but I was only supposed to go to the bathroom and come right back after all. Oops. Feeling guilty, I open my eyes. My eyes blink, and I rub them a bit, and as I do, the weird smell starts to get stronger. It makes my face tense up, my jaw clench. It's really awful. What is that? Looking to my left, I immediately see copious amounts of smoke in the hallway. It's filling it so densely that it almost looks like a thundercloud. What? I leap up from my spot on the windowsill and see fire. Fire covering the floors, walls, and even burning up some of the ceiling. Threatening to turn everything, me included, into ash. Covering my mouth and nose with my right hand, I instinctively back away from the fire. As I start to move backwards, though, the ceiling begins to break above me a bit. Ah! I dodge out of the way, and a tiny bit of the floor where I had been standing begins to burn. As it starts to grow, the realization dawns upon me that I don't really have much time. I have to move, fast. My tiny feet carry me up the stairs I used to come to this floor, but when my eyes lay upon them, they find those stairs to be completely engulfed in flame. There's no way to get off the floor. Those were the only stairs. Moving back to where I had originally been, then running past it, I go to the very end of the hallway. The very second I get to the end, the ceiling by the stairs breaks, and bits of debris fall upon that spot. My heart begins to race faster and faster. Don't panic, don't panic. I repeat this to myself as I look around, but it's hard not to. I can barely even think, but I have to try. I can't give up or... Looking around, I see only one classroom I can still enter, an inner one. And in this hallway, 2 windows that I can still get to, along with a fire extinguisher! A bright red container sent from the heavens, encased in a box of glass with no openings. A sign above it clearly reading, "Break in case of emergencies." Naturally, I'm going to break that. Or at least, that's what I thought. Reality is cruel sometimes, oftentimes, in fact, and my strength is certainly not enough to break that glass. I hit it again and again, but the light punches of a 9-year-old are nothing to it. I pant, having almost given up, before getting a new idea. I run to the classroom and open the door, propping said door open with the large rock that was sitting right beside it. Running into the classroom, I look for something that I can use as a blunt weapon, but find nothing. The school was only finished being rebuilt after all. Of course there would be no decorations inside of it yet. No books, no rulers, no globes. Nothing but these desks and chairs. Taking one of the chairs and lifting it as best I can, I walk with it back out into the hallway. I throw it as hard as I can at the glass box containing my only hope, but it just bounces off of it. Desperately, I lift it one more time, managing to lift it over my own head, and then I throw it at the window this time, hoping that I could perhaps escape that way. But it once again simply bounces off. No matter how many times I throw a chair at anything, my meager amount of strength ensures that what I throw at it won't break. No matter what, I'm doomed. I can't make so much as a crack in anything. I can't. My shaky knees give way and they fall to the floor. I'm going to die here. The words barely leave my mouth before I start to choke from the inhalation of smoke. Instinctively putting my hand back over my face, I mutter to myself, I hope that the teacher and everyone got out at least. Now physically exhausted and out of options, I begin to lose all hope. I'm usually not one to give up on anything, especially when it involves a life, but there's nothing I can do. I'm not as strong as Mom is, after all. Backing up once again, I'm forced to stop when my back hits the wall. I slump down, sliding, until I'm sitting down. My legs curl up, and I wrap my arms around them, watching as the flames slowly move closer to me, engulfing everything, burning all around me to cinders. As they slowly move closer, the inhalation of smoke has me close to passing out. It was already hard to think, but now it's almost impossible. I can't even begin to think of any meaningful last words, which would all in all be meaningless since no one but me would be around to hear them. No, it's everything I can do just to stay awake. The flames leap closer, and closer, and closer. Soon, they touch the bottom of my shoes, and the heat instantly goes through them. It burns, and yet I can't even bring myself to cry. No tears will come out. All I can do is put my head down, closing my eyes as I await the end. But even then, even now, a part of me still doesn't accept it. Through the burning pain, through the smoke making it hard to breathe, I manage to choke out one last sentence. I don't want to die. As I sit there, vision pitch black once again, sitting in what feels like an oven, I think about my friends and family. At the end of my life, vague thoughts of them float in my stressed out, burnt out, nearly empty mind. I hope Mom and Dad are well. I hope they can be happy. I wish that Shirley and Axel would stop fighting all the time. I hope that Natalie and Rayleigh can reconcile. It'd be nice if Frederica could be friends with Alice. She's always wanted to. I want someone, anyone, to be able to understand Rika better. Someone should help Zell with his problem speaking. Alyssa and Daisy, grow up well. Grow nice plants, Armel. Shun, be nicer to everyone. Elena, I hope you can perform like you've always wanted to. And Mai. Wait, I should... Huh? As I sit there, A realization interrupts my final disjointed thoughts. I no longer feel any heat. My toes are no longer burning. I hear no crackles. I smell no smoke. Was I saved? Did someone put the fire out? Opening my eyes, I see no fire. I also see no hallway. I see nothing. There's nothing all around me. I'm sitting in a pure, blank, snow-white space, where I can't even tell where the floor begins or ends, or if there's a wall. Like a blank canvas, there's nothing here. Thanks for breakfast! I smile at Dad as I sit down at the table. He smiles warmly back at me and nods in response. I sit down in my chair, and he sits down in his. Soon after, Mom comes by holding our drinks, setting them down in front of us before setting her own down. She then sits in our chair, and our usual breakfast routine begins once again. Today the menu is French toast, alongside a fried egg and a side of mixed berries. And that's not all. Today we also have a rare treat. Each of us has a third of an orange, all split evenly between us. And to drink, it's only the usual water. Again, as usual, it's all extremely delicious. Also, as usual, none of us spoke a word to each other as we enjoyed our meal. The quiet morning sunshine shines in through the window, making the already warm atmosphere feel even warmer as we eat. And then, as usual, I finish eating first. My napkin lightly rubs against my mouth, cleaning any bits that happen to be there, and then is set down upon the now empty plate. I leave it there along with the silverware as I scoot out of my chair. Mom and Dad don't say a word to me as I move back upstairs, back to my room. Deciding that even though it's a special day today, that I'd like to be comfy. I put on a casual, everyday outfit, a normal white shirt and some overalls on top of it. Light and comfy, not too special, yet strikingly cute in its own way, just like me. Giggling to myself at that thought, I smile at my reflection in the mirror and wave at her as I leave my room, going back down the stairs. As I get halfway down the stairs, though, I remember that I forgot to brush my teeth. I run back up them and move to my bathroom, where I quickly brush them. Brush, gargle, rinse, and spit. Blech. I know I can't be picky with food or anything really, but I'll at least say that mint isn't really my favorite flavor of anything. Finishing with that, I put my toothbrush back in its spot, then go back out and down the stairs once again. I call out to Mom and Dad as I slip my boots on, raising my voice to make sure they can hear me. I'm leaving now! Dad smiles at me as he stands at the kitchen sink, washing our dishes. Mom smiles as well, her eyes closed as she idly sips at her drink. Have a good day, sweetie. Be good. Be sure to listen to Mrs. Bentley, all right? I will. I beam back at them as I open the door, then turn around and meet the fresh spring breeze. Letting the door close on its own like always, I step off of the front porch and into the street. I inhale, taking a breath of the crisp air, and then I decide to take a small detour before going to my destination. It's such a beautiful morning, and I'm pretty early anyhow. I think I'll go sit by the river for a bit. It's always nice to hear the water going by there, and the trees and flowers growing on the hillside are always so nice and calming, too. Smiling to myself as I move, I leisurely walk east from my house, passing by the Adventurers Guild that's right beside the house, the guild that my parents run. The guild in name only, but will one day be a real one. Right now, all it is a meeting spot in town, for the people who defend us or just want to hang out. Important plans are discussed there, and people come in every night to drink nasty stuff. Stuff that my mom told me I'm not old enough for yet. One day, though, it'll be a real guild, or at least that's what Mom says. People from all over will come to both post and accept requests. They'll group or regroup there, and it'll be a hub for all travel, both incoming and outcoming from Galewood. I wonder if that day will come soon. I sure hope so. I want Mom's dream to come true. Finally getting myself to stop thinking about that and getting myself to move again, I walk past the guild, then past the other houses on this road. When I finally reach the river, before I can even think about sitting in the spot on the hill that I always do next to the tree, my eyes catch something strange. Standing there on the bridge over top of the river is a person I've never seen before. Seeing as our town rarely, if ever, gets any visitors or people stopping through, seeing a stranger is enough to make me feel amazed. However, I only wanted to sit and relax, and if they're here in town, they'll almost definitely stay for a while. They probably only just got here, since Mom and Dad didn't mention seeing any new people last night. Thinking that, I decide to just sit in my usual spot and appreciate the nice morning like I had planned to. The breeze seems to embrace me as it passes by, taking a few loose leaves and flower petals along with it. It really is a nice morning. I hope that the person over there is enjoying it too. Wait, huh? Looking back at the bridge, I see that the person is now gone. Not a trace of them remains. Huh? That's weird. I didn't see them leave, and I didn't hear any footsteps either. It's so quiet here that even though there's a little distance between here and there, I should have definitely been able to hear the footsteps against the bridge when they walked. Maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention? Well, whatever. I think I've spent enough time here. I should get going. Standing up and patting my overalls, I decide to roll the bottom of the pants part up to make some shorts. It's a bit too hot to leave them like that, I think. And also, it looks a bit cuter this way. Once I'm finished with that, I go back up to my house, then get going on the way to the school. The way that I practiced several times alongside Natalie, Zell, Maya, and Elise. Reaching the end of the road, I turn right. After walking for a bit, I turn left onto the next road, and after reaching the end of that one, I turn left once more and head up towards the school. I admire how nice it looks now, all fixed up and pretty looking. The once rotted wood replaced with fresh lumber, and many newly planted trees adorn the path leading to the entrance. And there, right in front of the gate, stand Shirley and Axel. Their backs turned to each other. It seems they fought again, like usual. In fact, just looking at them standing like that, I already know exactly what happened. Axel, despite waking up super early to be the first one to arrive and probably rushing over as quickly as his feet would move, was beaten to the punch by Shirley. And knowing Shirley, she probably took a nap or even slept without having dinner last night in order to wake up earlier than him. Or maybe she didn't sleep at all. Either way, it's one of the two and all done solely to annoy Axel. I wish those two would just get along. To be honest, I don't even understand why they fight and bicker so much. It's completely beyond me. I could maybe understand if it was just a simple rivalry or something, but they fight over everything. From sports to studies to even small things such as getting somewhere first. Despite how strangely they act, though, they're still my friends, and I'll always greet them with a smile. Shirley, Axel, good morning! Good morning! They both say the same thing simultaneously, stopping at the exact same time as well. They look at each other, glaring, then turn away again in a huff. Those two really are too much. With a slightly exasperated smile, I walk up to them. A slightly awkward and silent minute passes before I finally get myself to say something, and soon enough I get them both talking to me. A nice, pleasant conversation, riddled with the small jabs the two make at each other, fills up the time as we wait for everyone else to arrive. Natalie and Zell soon show up alongside Martha, Robin, and Mocha. Everyone else shows up soon after, everyone except for our teacher. The conversation became more lively as more kids showed up, and eventually, they all branched off and separated into distinct, separate conversations. I ended up talking mostly with Natalie and Zell, even though Zell can't speak back. Hey, are you actually okay with me calling you Zell? Natalie suddenly brings this up after the topic of conversation moves to his family's farm. He tilts his head in response as if questioning her question. It's just that Kimma started calling you that, and everyone else did too. No one ever really questioned it or asked you about it, right? We can start calling you Zelda if you want. Yeah, I mean, it's a little harder to say that, but if you want, I'll definitely stop calling you Zell too. He smiles at us and shakes his head, putting both of his hands up. So it's fine? He nods, and I feel a small bit of relief. I'm glad he's fine with it. I would have hated to have accidentally made him upset. The conversation topic moves once again, soon. And the three of us spent a few more minutes talking about trivial yet wonderful things as we continued waiting for our teacher. Then, about 10 minutes after the time where everyone was supposed to be here, our teacher finally showed up. Ms. Roxanne Bentley came up, looking far more put together than usual, makeup on her face and jewelry I've never seen her with before on. She marches confidently over to our little group, her heels clicking as she steps across the stone road. I'm sorry I'm late, everyone, but I'm here now, so let's get this tour started. A few people, me included, give an okay or an alright at her response, and we follow her into the building. We look at the sparsely decorated entrance, and Ms. Bentley coughs to get our attention. I know it doesn't look like much right now, but that's because construction was only just finished. And now that it's all been stress tested and cleared for usage, we can not only begin to host classes here, but decorate it. And since this is not just our school but yours as well, we wanted to ask you all to help with the efforts. Anything that you want to bring in and put in, do it. As long as it's nothing too crazy or detrimental to a learning atmosphere, anything is fine. A few kids once again give her an affirmative response. This time, however, I don't, as I'm too busy being excited thinking about what I could bring in. I have a few things in my room that I'm not using. Oh, and Mom has all those charts that she doesn't really look at anymore. I'm sure I could convince her to let me bring some of them in. I could hang them up in the classrooms, like that one star chart would be, alright kids, let's move along now. After breaking my train of thought, Miss Bentley begins to move into the school proper. She moves right into one of the halls, then moves right into a speech. Now, I know this might be boring to some of you, and I know that it'll mainly be things everyone already knows, but I want this to be a good official first tour, so I'm going to say it all anyway. Now then, as you all know, all of you had to be homeschooled since you were little, while we adults rebuilt this school little by little. And now we've finally completed it, and we can finally start teaching you all like how we've wanted to. In a last-ditch effort to preserve at least some of the old ways, a lot of us wanted to teach you in an environment specifically made for that, and so here we are. It took a lot of wood, a lot of effort, but it's finally done. And doesn't it look wonderful? If I do say so myself, everyone did a great job with the rebuilding effort. No, beyond great. They went above and beyond with it. Now, as you're without a doubt all aware, this world was ravaged by a disease a long time ago. Before I was even born, in fact. Before any of us were. A once bright world was dulled, and brought almost to a standstill. Cures were attempted, and many efforts were made in an attempt to stop it, but despite it all, the disease managed to wipe out most of humanity. A small moment of silence follows as she opens the door, leading us into one of the classrooms. Just like the entrance, the hall, And everything else in here, it's sparse and nearly empty. All that's in here are desks, chairs, and a chalkboard in front of them. The common estimate shared by everyone now is that only around 1 million or so humans are left on this planet. Less than the size of what once was an average country. Barely able to sustain ourselves. Having to use the leftover bits of the people that came before us, the people that once thrived, we settled down in towns like this. You wouldn't know this, but before you were even born, this town here was once on the brink of ruin. Almost all of the houses here had to be fixed up before anyone could settle down in them. And I say almost because some of them didn't even exist back then. Some people in this town built their own houses, in fact. People like the Hindles, who made numerous contributions in rebuilding this school. Upon her saying this, Axel puffs his chest out a bit, looking extremely proud for someone whose family did all the work and who he himself contributed nothing. Miss Bentley leads us back out of the classroom and down the hall, before moving to a different one. She continues to speak about things we all already know, as I start to space out instead of following my own train of thought. It's kind of boring to hear all the things we already know. Mom told me that Miss Bentley would be teaching us history because, as she said, Roxanne loves to talk and think about the past, perhaps a little too much. I agree with Mom, but not only because it's a bit boring. I think it's a little sad that she focuses on the past so much. A lot of people think that the future here is bleak, if there even is one, but I'd like to have some hope. I'd like to believe that things will be better one day. Alright, this way. There's not many features in here, but all the same, there's enough in here for you all to be able to exercise to your heart's content. Miss Bentley shows us the inside of the gymnasium and afterward leads us to the nurse's office, the band room that consisted of a bunch of seats and 3 whole instruments, and the auditorium. As she walks up and onto the stage, however, I start to feel a certain something. An intense, urgent feeling. Something that needs to be taken care of immediately. Being confronted with a feeling like this, I know that I need to take action as soon as I can. And so I raise my hand into the air, high into the air, to get her attention after she turns around. And then I ask the all-important question. Miss Bentley, can I use the bathroom? She looks down at me from atop the stage, then points to the doors. Of course. Unfortunately, due to the fact that we have very limited supplies, there's only 1 bathroom on each floor. The first floor one is almost right in front of the entrance near the cafeteria. I'm sure you saw it, however, that's a bit of a way away from here. So, you go and run to those doors, go down the second hall you see, go up the stairs, then go to your right, and it should be right there. We'll be going on ahead without you. Over to the cafeteria, and then to the track and field behind the school. Catch up with us when you're finished, alright? Alright, I will. And so, here I sit. In this void. In this stark, snow-white, completely blank space. How did I get here? I guess that it doesn't really matter. Maybe I died? Well, if I did or didn't, I'll find out eventually. I still have my body, and I can still move, so I'm going to. Even if there's nothing here, just sitting around will do nothing for me. So I should get moving. As I put my hands to the ground and start to stand up, I feel nervous all of a sudden. It's as if I'm being watched. I spin around and stop when my sights land upon another person. An incredibly tall person is staring down at me with bright, almost glowing yellow eyes. Their skin is so white and devoid of color that it almost blends in with the blank space surrounding us, and their lilac hair flows down, so long that it almost touches the floor. As I stare at them, I start taking in more details of their appearance, and in doing so, notice how strange they are. The yellow eyes aside, their eye whites aren't white. They're black somehow. And besides that, their pupils aren't pupils. They're white and far too thin, like little snake-like slits. And to top it all off, the outfit they're wearing is incredibly normal. Something I might see someone wearing around town, aside from the boots. But despite that, despite everything about their appearance being strange when put together, I can't help but find them somewhat attractive looking? I'm not even sure if that's the right word to use, but they're so pretty. I can't stop looking at them. I can't move my eyes away. You really are like her. Their voice is beautiful as well, almost alluring and crystal clear, as if every word they spoke was carefully considered, being thought about extensively and extremely carefully before being vocalized. You even look like her. They walk up to me, crouching down and looking directly into my eyes. It's at this moment I realize that I'm completely frozen in place. I can't move at all. Who is this? Is this God? However, her eyes were green, yet yours are brown. Her? I wonder who they mean. I want to ask so badly, but I can't. I can't move even an inch, a single centimeter, let alone move my lips and mouth to vocalize anything. Now then, this encounter is a bit painful for me, but nonetheless I would like to save you. Or rather, I already have. I want to reply, I want to say something so badly, and yet I can't. This overwhelming pressure I feel, slowly growing stronger with every passing second, makes my frozen body feel as if it's about to collapse. I don't know how much longer I can last. Is something wrong? They squint their eyes at me, seemingly concentrating. They tilt their head as they stare, and since I can't respond physically, I decide to vocalize the thought in my mind. I'm not sure if this will even work, but no, I can't move any part of my body. A look of surprise washes over their face, as their mouth opens slightly. In a way, it's kind of cute. Oh, my apologies, I had forgotten that I did that. One moment. They close their eyes for a few seconds, and once they open them again, I'm able to move freely again. I clench my fists and open them again, moving my body a bit as I think about things. Strange. It's all so very strange. I don't think that this person is God anymore. All of this is really confusing, but they mentioned something about saving me. So they're a good person. So instead of asking everything someone would usually ask in a situation like this, I'll just skip ahead to the most important part. I look up at them as they stop crouching and stand once again, and offer them a smile. What's your name? Their eyes widen in a slight surprise once again, then their lips curl into a soft smile. You are very interesting as well, just like how she was. I am Rel. I'm still not sure who the she they keep mentioning is, but given that it's in the past tense and they seem a little sad, it's nothing I should bring up. I'm Kimma. It's nice to meet you, Ralph. Thank you for saving me. No, I should be the one thanking you for the opportunity. However, seeing as you did come very close to death, perhaps that would be considered rude. Maybe that they sound like they choose every word they say extremely carefully thing was a bit off the mark. That aside, I was right about them being a good person, though. They seem really nice, and I still can't take my eyes off of them. It's not because I physically can't anymore, though. It's just that all of the pure white surrounding us is starting to hurt my eyes a little. You were unable to escape from that building on your own, correct? No, I tried my best, but I'm just a kid. And I didn't develop any special powers like most of my friends did, so I couldn't use any of them to get out. I really did think I was going to die. I see. If something like this happened again, fortune would not smile upon you as it did on this day. It would almost surely end in tragedy. This is not a coincidence, as I came here solely to see you, but it does make me happy that I was able to come at that precise moment. Any later, and I would not have been able to speak with you at all, most likely. You came to see me? Yes. Before today, I hadn't left my room in, let's see, precisely 381 years, 52 days, and 23 minutes. I can barely even comprehend that, let alone form a reply to it. Now then, Kimma, despite this being our first and likely only meeting, I would be very troubled if you were to die. This is solely due to selfishness on my part, as you both look and act so much like her. You even sound like her, albeit far younger. Nonetheless, please, allow me to do something for you. You already saved me, though. I can't possibly ask for anything else. They smile softly at me. Consider this a personal favor. Now, tell me, what sort of powers were you speaking of before? What is your world like? I could find out in an instant, but I would like to hear it from your mouth instead. I guess repeating that history lesson Ms. Bentley just taught us should work here. Despite being boring, I guess it did have a purpose. One she never could have imagined, though. Never in a million zillion years. Well, in my world, there are only around 1 million humans left because of a disease that spread through the world long before I was born. It killed off almost everyone, and the people it didn't are doing their best to survive. And as for the powers, well, kids have been developing what some would call superpowers. It's been happening for years now, and no one knows the cause of it, but most of them are like magic. Magic, you say? Yeah, no kids past the age of 13 develop any for some reason, but almost everyone's got one. I don't, but I still have a few years left. Anyway, as an example, oh, my friend Elise has telepathic abilities, while my neighbor Mai has super strength and can punch through almost anything. I see. How interesting. I have seen many worlds ravaged by disease, and many others where such powers have been spread in a similar fashion, but almost none where both occur at once. Nonetheless, in this case, it should be perfectly fine for me to gift you with a power of my own. A power of your own? You mean you can just give people powers? Yes, I can do anything. Anything? Now then, Kema, please stay still. I shall give you a gift befitting your nature, one that allows you to fight with tremendous strength, but can be used for other non-violent purposes as well. One that, if used correctly, will be able to save both yourself and others from nearly any situation that may arise in your world. Huh? And just like that, they disappeared. Without so much as moving a muscle, they're suddenly behind me. No sparkles, no sounds, nothing. It's as if they moved at the speed of light the second I blinked. Now, stay perfectly still. I don't think that this is a choice, but I'll stay quiet and still regardless. Even if I am really dead, or even if this is somehow just a dream I'm having, it would be stupid to object to receiving a cool power from a supernatural being. And so I stand there, perfectly still. I feel their fingers press against the back of my shoulders, one finger on each one. Their fingers then move slightly inwards, tracing 2 lines down my back. They move slowly and stop right before touching my butt. Their fingers linger for a few seconds before they're lifted off, and Rel speaks once more. I believe that this ability will complement you well. Take care to remember your limits, however. Do not use more than 8 of them at a time, or you will experience amounts of pain more than you can physically handle. And if you push yourself beyond that, well, please just do not do that. Okay. I don't think that I will ever see you again, as I'm not sure that I could emotionally handle such a meeting. If it does happen, however, it would be nice if we could chat, and yet I don't think that it ever will. Regardless, I wish you a long, happy life. Please stay well. Wait! I start to turn around, but before I can, my vision turns completely black once again. I was too late. Hey! I found her! Huh? Is that a person? They're yelling so loudly. My vision is once again completely black. I guess I fell asleep again. How though? I had only just woken up, right? I open my eyes, blinking a few times, and find myself staring up at the clouds above. There's a lot of smoke mixed in with them, to the point where the puffy white clouds seem to be getting swallowed up by them. Looking down slightly, I find that I'm right in front of some part of the school. The school that's still on fire as I stare at it. A fire that I was just in. But wait, I feel like something just happened, but... Oh, thank goodness you're alright. Mai's voice rings in my ears as I hear others approaching me. Oh, she's alright. Oh, thank the stars, your mother would have killed me if something had happened to you under my supervision. She breathes a deep sigh of relief before continuing. We've all been looking for you ever since we first started to smell the smoke. Everyone ran off immediately. I suppose I'm lucky that the ones that went with me are the ones that happened to find you here. Oh, I see. I'm alright, I say as I roll over, pushing myself off the ground in order to stand. Miss Bentley looks at me with a worried gaze as I straighten out my legs and back, wobbling a bit as I do. Are you sure? You must have inhaled quite a lot of smoke. We should get you to Mrs. Aroke right away. No, really, I'm fine, Miss Bentley. I'm just a little tired. That's only a half-lie. I probably did inhale a lot of smoke, but... Wait, huh? What? Glass? There's glass near my feet. When I look up at the school, the window where I had been napping before is broken. And yet, there's nothing on the ground here along with me besides that broken glass. What did I? How did? Nothing I did worked, right? Then how? How am I outside right now? How did I? How? How? Oh. Oh! Right! That's right! I. How could I have forgotten about that? Did they try to make me forget? But there's no way I ever would. I could never forget Rel and the fact that they saved my life. And I could never forget their parting gift either. Well, I suppose that if you're smiling, you can't be hurt too bad. Then again, you're being a bit unresponsive and strange, so perhaps your mental facilities are in bad shape. No, I'm really fine, I swear it. Then can you tell me how you escaped? Yes, I can. It'll be a bit of a lie, but it'll also be a bit of the truth. I used these. I then used the gift Rel gave me for the very first time. Naturally, I've never taken them out before, as I've only just received them. Naturally, I should have no idea what was put into my back, or that anything was put into there at all. Yet somehow, I know. I'm not sure how I know, but I know exactly what the power I received from them. And I know exactly how to use it. And so, for the very first time, I summon what appears to be a ghostly arm from my back and maneuver it right in front of me. I make it do a little wave to Miss Bentley, who stares unwaveringly back at me. Kimma, sweetie, used what exactly? Where am I supposed to be looking? And that aside, your eyes just changed color. That's a side effect of them, please don't mind it. And this right here. I wave it a little more, putting it right in front of her face. You don't see it? No, I don't see anything. But I have my ghost arm right in front of you. Ghost arm? I need to think of a better name for them. That aside, it seems I'm the only one who can see them. I wonder why. Well, I'll try to explain it for you. It's basically a giant, ghostly, mostly transparent hand and what's sort of like an arm coming out of my back. I can take up to 8 of them out at a time, and the more I take out, the smaller they all become. There's no bones or anything in them, and they're really strong. My, that's certainly a strange power. I've never heard of any like it before. Is it really that strange? Robin can go inside of electronics as rare as they are now. In comparison to that, I feel like, despite who I got it from, my power is relatively normal. I'll definitely have to tell Terry about this development, Miss Bentley says quietly to her spilf, before speaking again to me in her normal voice. Well, it's a good thing that your power appeared when it did, or I might not be speaking to you right now. Anyway, while I go help take care of the damage, go take Kimma to Mrs. Oroki. Oh, I almost forgot he was here. Yes, ma'am. But, Kimma dear, I know you said it's not that bad, but you surely inhaled a lot of smoke. I want you to at least get checked up on, alright? Okay. She can be so overbearing sometimes. Mai walks up to me as I accept that I have to go visit Mrs. Oroki now, and gives me a shoulder to lean on. Here, let's go. Okay. He left almost as soon as I got in here. Wow. And Mrs. Oroki seemed to be more distraught about the school being on fire than I was. Me, the person who had been in that fire. It's only because she was so excited to become the school nurse that I know it, but sheesh. I wish that Mai hadn't left me alone with her. She sighs again, then takes out a clipboard and writes a few things down. Alright, you're clear to go home, Kimma. No cuts or bruises or anything, and somehow your lungs seem to be perfectly fine despite everything you went through. I don't understand it, but
You're perfectly fine, so there's no reason for me to keep you here. Make sure you rest up, though, alright?
Okay, I will. Thank you, Mrs. Okay.
Of course, dear. Be careful on your way home now.
I nod as I stand up, then slip my boots back on before nearly running out the door. I take the walk home far slower, no longer able to enjoy the nice day that had been here before. The sky is clouded with smoke and ash, and the nice fresh smell is no longer on the breeze. I decide to go right home. When I get there, I find that Mom and Dad aren't there. They're probably helping contain and put out the fire. Or at least Mom definitely is. I guess I'll tell them about my new power whenever they get home. For now, though, I walk up the stairs, open the door to my room, and move to my bed, and fall down face first onto it. I stay like that for a few seconds, then slowly pull myself up and onto it. I then roll over so that I'm on my back, laying down like how a person should. Wow. Today was so eventful. It's not even noon yet, I think, but way too much has happened. I met a mysterious being, received cool powers, got to tour the school, which I guess doesn't matter since it's burning down and will be unusable again. And besides that, what else? Oh, I got to enjoy a nice day for a while, and... Oh, that's right, I saw a stranger too. I wonder where they are now. But... This power... I need a name for it. Everything needs a name. And since it's a cool power, I should give it a cool name. Let's see. Ghost Arms doesn't really sound cool. I bet I could ask Mom and she could give me a really cool name. Back in the day, she had a weapon with a really cool name too. I remember her telling me about that once. Let's see, it was... Execution Rule! I move my arm into the air, holding up a pretend sword as I shout the name of it. Or wait, was that the sword's name or her cool final attack's name? I flop back down onto the bed, unable to remember which. Not that that matters right now. What matters right now is finding a name for my thing. Alright, let's see. Think. They're really big arms and hands, so... Maybe I should call them something that has to do with arms? Arms are... limbs. Limbs doesn't really sound that cool, though. Oh, I know. Whenever someone has an extra limb or something, it's called an appendage, right? Then I'll call them my appendages. That sounds really cool, too. It's perfect. With that settled and out of the way now. Man, today's not even over yet, but I'm so exhausted. I just thought about it a bit ago, but a lot really did happen. Oh, I should write it all down so I don't forget about any of it. I roll over a little and grab my diary, which has sat unused for a long time. Let's see, how long has it been since I've written in you? Wow, 7 months and 13 days? I'm sorry I've ignored you for so long, but now I'll write in you once again. Now, I know that the school catching on fire is important for context and stuff, but I think I'll start by writing about Rel. They were so cool and amazing. I want to be just like them. I want to save people like how they saved me. And that is the end of the prologue, chapter 0. I'm gonna take a drink. I hope you're enjoying so far, everyone. Oh! Thank you for the 5 months. I forgot to turn alert sounds off. Oh, I should have alert sounds off in the future for these. Oh no! Whoops. Thank you though. And now, getting back to it. Chapter 1. Blank. Before I get into this one, I think I should start doing warnings for chapters that contain things like this. Warning for abuse and yeeting yourself and other stuff like that. Ah, thank you for the 4 months, Ihan. Thank you. Oh yeah, my desktop audio is off, but I wonder if that'll come up in the recording. Either way, I begin. A familiar palm strikes my cheek as hard as it possibly can. Seriously, can't you do anything right? These words. I can't believe you really aren't done yet. The same words I hear almost every day. It's been 10 minutes and you still aren't done. God, you just can't do anything right, can you? Is mad at me again. Ugh, you're so useless. I'm sorry. Please give me just a few more minutes. I'll get it done as fast as I can. My voice is the same lifeless tone as always, unable to even change in pitch. Eternally monotone, eternally lifeless. At this point, though, that's normal. It all is. And though it's funny to a degree, such a torturous existence becoming ordinary, I can't even smile about it. I haven't been able to in years now, after all. Glares at my cheek, still stinging from where she slapped it. She brings her foot high into the air, then slams it as hard as she can into that cheek. I want to cry out, but I know if I make any noises, she'll hit me even more. And so, all I can do is grit my teeth and bear it, as always. You're really just so useless. I just can't believe it sometimes. Anyone else would have finished... Bleh. Anyone else would have long since have finished this by now. And you're seriously asking me for more time? Yes, this is normal. God, sometimes I wonder why I even keep you alive at all. This is normal. Oh, that's right, because disposing of your corpse would take too much effort. This is completely normal for... and me. That and your corpse would probably smell worse than you already do. This is how she always treats me, and this is how I always respond. Then again, if I did dispose of it, at least you would stop stinking out my house by not responding at all. Either way, finish your work, you subhuman filth, by being unable to fight back. I'll give you 5 more minutes, finish all of it. But it's fine. I'm used to it. If you don't, I'll give you even more cuts on your arms and legs. I'll reopen every old wound that's healing. And as a treat, I'll even rip open all of your scabs afterwards. So she says, her words as venom-filled as always. She then turns around, slamming the door in my face, without so much as another word. And as for me, I rushed back down the stairs and got right to work, pencil scratching against paper in a desperate battle against time. Since even though I'm used to receiving it, I'd still like to avoid it. I don't like being in pain. No one does. No one could. Right? Right. Going as quickly as I can. I get through all of it with just 32 seconds to spare. What is it, though? Why do I do this? So I don't get hit more, of course. Even though I'll get hit either way.
I'll get cut open, beaten, and more. Even so, I'll continue to do this meaningless work. I will keep on filling out these journals. I'll keep making these pointless calculations. And when I'm finished with them, as always, I'll slide them under the door at the top of these stairs, just like I am right now. And then I wait, and while I wait, my thoughts wander off. I once again start thinking about how I might one day explain this to someone if I ever manage to get free of this place. If ever lets me go. If ever dies. If I can ever run. Let's see. Perhaps I would start it with, nearly every day I'm forced to do work. If I don't do it, will cause me great physical harm. As for the type of work it is, it's all completely meaningless calculations. At first, I thought I was actually helping, but I've long since realized that everything I do has no purpose. Help with what? With plan. It's a bit hard to fully describe, but in short, it's a plan to bring about the end of the world. Simple, right? Nonsensical, right? But found a way. She devised a way, and she's been pursuing it for years. I think that she started a few months before kidnapping me, and to be honest, I don't even know how long it's been since then. It's been many years, I know that much. A long set of years. Long enough for both of our bodies to develop more. Long enough where she's grown a lot taller. Long to the point that the old uniform she wears, the skirt and shirt that used to be extremely loose, is now mostly tight and form-fitting. And besides that, enough time has passed that the basement I'm forced to live in, the one that I'm not allowed to clean, has amassed a solid layer of dust on everything. Oh, right. If I'm talking about everything, I should talk about my living conditions here. Yes, right. Well, it consists of a single dimly lit bulb hanging from the ceiling, a small mattress with a disgusting appearance, and no blanket or pillow to speak of. On the floor there are only a few scattered notepads and pens written down, for me to use if I decide to beg for something. In the corner furthest away from the bed, there is nothing but a mess. One no one should speak of. And speaking of things such as that, the only times I'm allowed out of this basement are when can you be bothered to let me use the bathroom, and once a week when she allows me to shower. During those showers, I have to be as quick as I can. I'm not allowed to use hot water, and I am only allowed to use a tiny amount of soap and shampoo. If I use a size bigger than my fingernail, she somehow knows, and I am punished for doing so. That aside, as you may have guessed from the layer of dust and the appearance of the mattress, the entire basement is disgustingly filthy.
A pig should be happy living in its own filth.
So says. It's all fine, though. I haven't been truly clean in a long time, but that hardly matters. The world is going to end soon, and so I don't care. How will the world end? That's easy. Told me that her plan is going to come to fruition soon. Then again, if it does end, why should I bother thinking of this? If the world ends, who will I tell this to? It doesn't matter, I guess. I don't actually expect such a thing to ever happen, really. It's just a way to pass the time. Just me aimlessly thinking to myself, dreaming of something that will never happen, as I stare at this door and wait for to berate me once again, after she finishes scrutinizing my work. It seems that it will be a bit longer until then, however. I'll just get back to it then. Let's see. What else should I explain? Oh, right, the work. Again, at first I thought they were real calculations for her plan. They turned out to be nothing but nonsense, but I still have to put my all into them. Because checks them. Every time, without fail. And if I get anything wrong, which is usually every time, I am punished. This is only how she treats me, though. Everyone else's work actually means something. Who is everyone else? That's easy. Everyone else in our organization. Mainly the leaders, though. No, wait. Well, I did say our. I'm not really a part of it in anything but name. And that's not just me trying to shift the blame away. That's just something that has made extremely clear. And speaking of names, I should have started with that, shouldn't I? Well, it'd be a little hard to, honestly. Because I don't remember what mine even was. All I've known myself as for all this time is Duo, a code name of sorts, but at this point, it may as well just be my name. All of us have one. Everyone in this organization has a fake name that they go by, out of fear of getting caught and implicated. Everyone except for, that is, goes by her real name. She isn't afraid at all. I wish something that would have happened because of that. I wish that had been caught. It's funny, in a way. It's hard to believe that even now, I'm able to think about such things as wishes. Things such as hope of a future for myself, though I know deep down one won't come. It'll never come. It won't happen. No use thinking about that now. I'll continue. I still have some time left, it seems. So I'll just keep going. In regards to everyone's fake names, they're all extremely organized. They were decided by, in fact, which is probably why they're like that. And by organized, I mean that they're all numbers. Everyone refers to everyone else by their member number. The way that the numbers are read and written are different depending on the people, though. For example, member number 65 is simply 65. Number 351 is 351. It's as simple as that. When it comes to the leaders, they still use numbers. However, they're all in different languages so as to separate and differentiate them from the rest. It seems I still have time. I guess I'll go on to describe those leaders. As we all know already, is officially her member number is 0. She's the commander and the creator of this entire group, the whole project, everything. As for me, my member number should have been 1. However, wanted to cement how worthless I am, and demoted me to being number 2 instead. And so I became Duo. Moving on. Member number 1, the first leader, is Unum, Latin for 1. He's a tall guy with a really handsome face. I remember saying at one point that he's a fairly popular model who gets into tons of magazines. I personally wouldn't know how true that is, though. From the few pictures I've managed to see, though, I can attest to how good looking he is, though. His hairstyle is strange, with one end in the back being short and the other being long. But there's no denying that he has good features. I'm not exactly sure what his group does, but like all of them, it consists of 50 members in total. That 50 counts the leaders as well, to clarify. Now then, member number 2, as I've said, is Duo. I'll skip him. Member number 3 is Tris, Latvian for 3. I'd also like to take the opportunity to mention that is the one who chose these different language number names, also. It's not as if any of them know how to speak in those languages, with the exception of member number 4. Back to Tris, though. They're mostly an enigma. In the 2 pictures I've seen of them, they were wearing the same clothing. A single mint green shirt and an off-white blanket over their arms. Nothing else. Their shoulder-length, messily cut, light brown hair is the only other thing I remember well. I think that their group does something relating to coding. The one that's basically in my name, mostly, the one that's technically in my name mostly does audio-related activities, or at least that's what I've been told. Member number 4 is theyre, Irish for 4. She's able to speak multiple languages and is incredibly smart. The smartest of the 4 leaders, without a single doubt. Her favorite color is yellow, and she loves drinking coffee. Well learned in having 3 separate degrees, yet for some reason, no one except for a supermarket would hire her. Laughed about that twice before. Speaking of, I skipped over her before, but doing so is making me start to feel anxious. She can't hear my thoughts. There's no possible way. And yet, skipping over makes me feel as if I'll be punished. So, member number 0 is dark brown floor. Dark brown hair, now floor length. When she first kidnapped me and when we first met, though, it was shoulder length and a bit neater. It's extremely unevenly cut now, but when I say unevenly cut, please don't think that means she cuts it regularly. The last time she cut it, it was near the middle of her back. Come to think of it, she never took those hairpins out either. It just kept growing with those in there. Even to this day they remain there, locking that one bit of hair in place. Moving on to her clothing. She always wears the same old school uniform. One that she bought online. Our school had no such thing as uniforms. When she bought it, it was far too big for her. Now, though, as I think I thought before, it's very form-fitting. She doesn't wear anything else, since she doesn't want to buy any new clothes. She proclaims it to be a waste of money and time. She says that it doesn't matter, since she doesn't have to go outside anyway, since anything she needs will be delivered right to her house. Even though it certainly gets itchy, even though it gets dirty, even though what once was white is now pink due to being washed with blood too often. And now, I can't think of anything else to elaborate on. I'm so tired. Standing on these stairs like this hurts because of the wounds on my legs. I want to sit down. I'm used to this, but it still hurts. Just being awake hurts. I'm used to it, but it still bothers me. But I can't complain. I can't. No matter what, I can't complain. No matter how bad it gets, I can't say anything about it. If I do, things will only get worse.
I'm surprised. You got everything completely right. That's the first time you've done that in weeks now. Or maybe months? I don't remember or care.
So says, after opening the door with no warning. In response, before I can stop myself, a tiny smile begins to form on my lips. Catching myself right as my muscles begin to move, however, I do manage to stop myself before it's at all noticeable. Or so I thought. I realize how wrong I am as her foot collides with my chest, sending me falling backwards down the staircase.
Did you think I wouldn't notice that? I didn't give you permission to smile, useless second.
I remain still, crumpled in a heap at the bottom of the staircase. I don't dare say a word. Probably looking about as horrible as I feel, I lament that the fall didn't snap my neck.
Whatever. Here's your weekly ration, scum.
Her voice drips with contempt for me as she tosses something at me. The items fall down the stairs, hitting me at the very bottom. From what I could make out as I watched them fall towards me, they seemed to be a single banana, a box most likely full of toaster pastries, a single slice of bread, and 3 bottles of water.
You're lucky I even feed you, you worthless rat. No, even a rat is more useful.
And now I have to.
I could be using my money on so many other different things, yet I have to waste at least $10 every week, sometimes more, to keep your pathetic body alive.
With as much emotion as I can muster up with my lifeless voice.
You know, I think I read once that humans can survive up to a week without any food. Starting next week, I think I'll have you test out that theory.
I pray that I can say it correctly through the pain.
Thank you.
No. Oh no. No, that didn't sound at all like it should have. My voice cracked in the very first word due to the pain. It was only 2 words, yet I managed to mess them up like that. I can feel her glaring daggers at me. I can already feel the pain.
I don't have time to deal with you right now, you pathetic pile of trash. I'll punish you for that later. Perhaps I'll pluck all of your eyebrow hairs one by one. I'll think of something.
She leaves me with that, slamming and locking the door shut behind her. It seems I've been spared, at least for now. Perhaps today is my lucky day. She wasn't joking. It's been a bit over a week now, and I've received no food. The only rations I've been given are these 3 bottles of water. If I think on the bright side, maybe this could be a blessing in disguise. Maybe I'll die of starvation, or maybe my stomach will digest itself and I'll die from that. Or maybe... No, this is a useless train of thought. I know she won't let me die so easily. It's absurd of me to even think she would. And yet, I can't help but wonder why. As I sit here, in this room that's probably 80% dust and 10% bloodstains, I wonder. I wonder to myself the reason why. I wonder if she's low on funds. If she used a ton of money to buy something big. If she had to pay someone else an exuberant amount. If she had an unexpected situation or condition pop up. Or perhaps, if she really had just wanted to do a little experiment on how long a person can survive with no food intake. Either way, it's only been about a day without food now, but I'm already feeling the effects. The only effects are just a slight feeling of sleepiness, and my stomach constantly growling though. Yes, that's it. I imagine it will be a few days before it starts to become unbearable. And yet, I can't help but wonder something once again. How long will it take before she grants me mercy and allows me food once again? The answer, I would find out, was never. The reason? The same reason that she did this in the first place. It's a short and simple one. There was no need to. The end is upon us. Everything was ready. I learned all of this very, very early on this day. How early? Right after I was awoken. What sort of dream was I having before that happened? Well, that certainly doesn't matter. Pain. Pure, unfiltered pain. Shooting through my nerves, originating from my hand. It's painful. It hurts. It hurts so badly. Being awoken by this feeling, I temporarily lost grip on my body's control. The incredibly foolish person known as me instinctively let out a cry, nearly a scream, in response to it, and instantly, regret for that action soon replaced the pain I felt. Upon finally realizing exactly what I had done and what was happening, my eyes dart to the figure standing beside me. I see, there, smiling widely, staring down at me, a knife clutched tightly in her left hand, and being driven deep into the middle of my right hand. Tears form in my eyes from a combination of everything I'm feeling. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm very, very sorry. Please forgive me. I thought I told you not to make sounds like that, you damn animal. She wiggles the knife around, intensifying my pain. I bite my lip as she does, swallowing my pain. This time, able to suppress my innate desire to scream. Though I'm able to hold in the pain response verbally, I can't physically. My eyes continue to produce tears, and they flow down my cheeks. I can't stop them. I can't stop crying. God, you can't do anything right. You can't even follow the simplest orders. Takes the knife out of my hand, then starts pressing the tip into my thumb. As I continue to hold in the pain, she slowly slices a line into the top of each one of my fingers and thumbs. Worthless garbage. Beyond worthless. Ugh, whatever. Get up. Now. Today's the day. She starts walking towards the staircase, then stops and looks back at me. Wait. Today is the day? Oh. Is it now? Is it really? She can probably see it from there, even in this dark light. She almost definitely saw that just now. The small twinkle of hope in my eyes. A hope springing from seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, at the thought of everything finally being over. And luckily for me, she decided to ignore it completely. Come on, stupid. You have 2 minutes. Get to my room by then. I need you to help me with the final preparations. And then, with snot and tears entering my mouth as I open it to speak, I reply, Of course, I'll do anything you need me to. His face twists into an expression of pure disgust as her gaze rests upon me for just a moment before she turns and heads up the stairs. Forget when I thought it was a few days ago. Today is my lucky day for sure. The luckiest day of my life. And so, I rush to put my clothes on and get to her room. 2 minutes is more than enough. No problem. Or so I thought, but I ended up being 14 seconds late. I likely would have made it, but with my right hand being essentially useless now, It was more difficult than I thought it would be to pull my shorts up. The second I used my left hand to knock on her door, she gently opens it up and violently throws her fist into my face. Falling back onto the floor, I make sure not to cry as my brain tries to process the sudden pain. I think she just broke my nose. At this point, though, I don't really care.
Get up and follow me.
She commands, and so I do so. Following her like a dog obeying its commands, I walk behind her as she moves to her desk. She sits down in her chair, types her overly long password into her PC, and launches a chat client. At that moment, I think the same thing I do every time I'm in her room, which for the record has only been around 10 times now. Do you really need this many monitors? There's 9 of them here, along with 3 whole computer towers and 4 whole desks to hold everything. What's the point of all of it? I would think it might be just for show, but has no one she would want to show off to. I don't think her personality would even let her show off. I don't think she would care enough. But really, is this all really needed for what you're doing? I want to ask, but I have to stay quiet, or I'll be punished once more. And so, I stay silent and watch as types a few things on what I think is a website called Twitter, and then opens up a chat client I've never seen before. Just like Twitter, it's almost bright white. In this dark room, it's almost blinding to look at it. Seems to have no issues, though. She types a few words into the chat box, sends it, and then reaches for her headset. She puts it onto her head, then pushes the microphone part down. I watch as she enters a voice chat, yet stays silent. Time begins to pass as the group members all start making their way into the voice chat, all except for one. As I wait, I look around her room once again. There are far less bloodstains here than in my room, but there's still a lot here. It's caked into her carpet all over the place. It's even smeared onto some of those books on her shelf. Speaking of, there seems to be a single book out of place, sitting on her bed instead of on its shelf. Just like some of the others, the book on the bed has blood on it. The page it's open to is positively drenched in her blood, and because of that, I'm almost unable to make out what's on it. A lot of words that I can't read from here, and what seems to be an occult circle. I didn't know she liked things like that.
It's time.
My eyes dart back to her screen. Every single member, save one, is now in the voice chat. Every single one of them is muted, unable to speak. Everyone except for...
As all of you are aware, today is the day. Precisely 1 month ago, we finished our work. Now that we've all had time to finish the last of our bucket lists and do whatever it is we wanted to do during the last bits of our life, it's time to put our plan into motion. The tree that we've grown and tended to for all of these years will bear fruit today. The world will end, and it will be all of our hands that sow its destruction. Be proud of yourselves for playing a part in this. You've all worked hard, and soon you will get the rest you truly deserve. As soon as I end this voice chat, our song will begin. All members that have a part to play in activating it, do so immediately. Do not hesitate or falter. I'll see you all in hell, if it truly exists. Goodbye. The second that she says her goodbye,
Her hand moves to the end call button and clicks it. After doing so, she carefully removes her headset before throwing it full force at the wall. It breaks into pieces on impact. Useless second, start destroying everything in here that's electronic, now. I obey without question. You have 8 minutes. I'm incredibly weak due to starvation, muscle atrophy, and my right hand being essentially useless. And yet, despite all that, I work as hard as I can to wreck her room. I throw the monitors to the floor and topple the computer towers. Picking up a monitor, I use it as a club to damage the towers even further. Not just in here, stupid, in my whole house! And go faster, you useless piece of shit! I don't know why I'm doing it. The world is going to end. I'm going to die anyway. And yet, I continue to obey her. Maybe from a sick sense of loyalty or fear. Or maybe because getting to wreck her entire house and everything she owns feels therapeutic in a way. It doesn't matter which. What matters is that I'm doing it. I'm going out of my way to destroy as much as I can. Only the electronics, though. After a few minutes of work, mostly everything is destroyed. Between the two of us and the fact that she didn't own much to begin with, nearly everything was destroyed easily. The only thing remaining is her TV, and I'm not sure if I could break that on my own. No, I can and I will. There's an easy way to do that, after all. If I just push the grandfather clock here over, then... As I grunt and push it over, it falls exactly where I wanted to, crushing the television. Glass flies out, cutting into my leg, yet I can barely feel it. Was that everything? I pant, looking at... She's glaring at me yet again. It better have been, or I'll cut you apart in the afterlife. I really, sincerely hope that there isn't an afterlife. And if there is, if there has to be, I hope that I at least don't go to the same hell that you do. Now, we have almost no time left. There's only 2 minutes before it begins. Follow me and get in here now. Somewhat curious as to what she could possibly mean, or what she could want to do with so little time left until the end. Or why she wanted me to help her destroy everything before that. I end up following her. I follow her back to her room and watch as she lifts part of the carpet up. Underneath where it had been sits a trapdoor, which she easily lifts up. How long has that been in here? What the hell? Get in! Now! I get my ass moving at her demanding yell. I start descending the dark, unlit tunnel using the ladder that seems to go down forever. Climbs in after me, shutting the trapdoor above us and encasing us in darkness. We climb downwards in the dark, silently feeling our way down, until my foot finally touches solid ground. I can't see it, but it feels like a rock. Move! And when you hit the door, move aside. I'll open it. Questioning what we're doing with every step, I do as says. I step aside the second I touch what feels like metal, and the tunnel slowly fills with a dim light as she does her best to pry it open. At first, I wonder why she's struggling, and then I realize it's because it appears to be a heavily insulated steel door. As you know, I've had extensive renovations done on and in this house. Yes, clearly. You know about the bulletproof windows and the extremely insulated walls already? Yes. They made it hot as an oven in here at times. Hotter than any of the 10 potatoes I've ever received from you. This is another renovation like those.
I never told you about this one because I never had a reason to.
I step inside, and she shuts the door behind us. When I get inside, I see a second door that looks virtually identical to the first. Opens this one as well, and once again, I follow her inside. The second that the door shuts, however, I realize that it was a mistake to do so. Oh, I see. I get it now. I understand why this room is here, why these tunnels are here. It's so simple, so nonsensical. And yet, at the same time, it's so perfectly obvious. The last one standing wins, right?
10 seconds left. Don't speak. Try not to even breathe, as from here on out, our oxygen is limited. In case of an emergency, I do have 2 spare tanks here, though.
Emergency? What? But you wanted to die more than anyone else. Looks at the clock, a gleeful smile dancing across her face. I stare at it as well, watching the second hand move. The promised time comes, with the clock reading 10:40. Whether it's AM or PM, I have no idea. The second hand moves, nothing able to stop its path. Outside of this place, far away from where my ears can hear it, the most haunting of melodies begins to play. The fruits of everyone's labor, a song tailor-made by science to have the exact frequencies needed to thoroughly disrupt any and all life it comes in contact with. Or, more simply put, a song that will kill anything that hears it. No, that's wrong. You don't have to hear it to be affected. You simply have to come in contact with it. And since they were able to hack into every audio-capable device on the entire planet, the overwhelming noise from it simply became almost unavoidable. Yes, this is how the world ends, with this one terrible song. Due to the fact that everything is made of cells and atoms, matter both organic and inorganic both perish from it. Nothing will survive unless something is miraculously far enough away, or if it's in a place where the melody cannot reach. A place like this. As the clock ticks on, I decide to peel my eyes from it and look around the room. There's blood on the floor in here too. And yet, unlike every other place in the house, it's set in a distinct pattern here. It looks like that occult circle I saw in the book in her bed. I suppose that explains the fresh cuts and bandages she has on. Sitting near the wall opposite the door is a desk with a few sheets of paper on it, as well as a single pen. A large dresser with many drawers sits next to it, hiding unknown secrets. And then, before I knew it, 3 full minutes had passed.
It's over.
Suddenly breaks the silence, announcing the end of the world.
Everything is over. All life on this disgusting planet should now be extinguished.
Yes, all except for you and me, and any other unlucky souls that somehow happened to be in a soundproofed room with no electronics in the vicinity of their abode. As I think about if I should respond verbally or not, I look over it. She's smiling. It's terrifying. It's the most horrific, deranged, real smile I've ever seen in my life. Then, as if that wasn't bad enough, she starts to laugh. It's awful, completely terrible in every way. A mad doctor in a horror movie would have a more appealing laugh than. Her laugh sounds less like a laugh and more like a pained hyena. It's like a repeated, extremely pained cry rather than a laugh. Maybe it's always been like that. Maybe it's because she almost never laughs. It doesn't matter either way.
Isn't this wonderful, useless second? Now we're the only ones left.
Her eyes, open far too wide, stare right into my soul.
Isn't that nice? Don't you think that's great, scum?
No, not at all.
But, unfortunately, this fun has to come to a quick end. So now, I'd like us to die on my terms instead of with everyone else. And we have to go quickly before we die of asphyxiation down here.
All right, I've changed my mind. Yes, please, that sounds lovely. Wonderful, in fact. Please, please allow me to die. Walks over to the dresser and opens the second drawer, pulling out both a pistol and a combat knife. She quickly walks over to me, pressing the knife into my left palm.
I'm going to count down from 5. After I say go, plunge that knife as deep into your chest as you can. Rejoice! I'm finally allowing you to escape from the hell that you deserved.
I stare at the knife and consider just slicing my neck open and ending it now. What could she possibly do? Be mad?
And don't you dare think of doing it early or in a different way. If you do that, know that I have medical supplies in those drawers alongside the oxygen I mentioned earlier. If you try to kill yourself early or anything, I'll make damn sure that you live. And then I'll take the barbed wire out from the bottommost drawer and tie your arms together with it. I'll take that knife and slowly cut you open, reopening every wound I've ever given you. I'll rip out your tongue, and I'll cut all your fingers and toes in half. And then to finish it off, I'll cut your stomach open and put some of the barbed wire into it and then sew you up with it still in there.
All right, I'll do exactly as she says. Like always, I will do exactly as says.
Now, put your knife to your chest and aim.
I do as she says. I aim it at my chest immediately.
5.
Out of the corner of my eye, I see her put the gun to the side of her head.
4.
I'm so ready for this.
3.
Her finger rests on the trigger.
2.
Finally.
1.
I finally get to die.
0.
It's finally here.
Salvation. Go!
I plunge the knife into my own chest as hard as I can, pushing it as deep into my own flesh as possible. As I do, I hear the gun go off. It isn't as loud as I thought it would be. I was sure it would blow out my eardrums. That aside, of course, things can never go right for me. Never, not ever. Especially not now. I was too weak. I wasn't able to do it correctly. I missed my own heart, and wasn't even able to push it in deep enough to begin with. The knife falls to the floor as I cry out, collapsing to the floor. I see. As I lay there, I see, still standing right where she had been before. Her corpse isn't collapsed next to me. She's standing there, alive as ever. And a bit above her, in the ceiling, is a small hole, or maybe an indentation. It was a BB gun.
I knew you wouldn't be able to. I knew you couldn't do anything right. But I can't believe you couldn't even kill yourself correctly. I know I call you things such as subhuman trash all the time, but honestly, I think you even go beyond that now. I don't think words exist to describe how lowly you are.
She drops the gun and moves to stand over top of me. I've been betrayed again.
You really are just the most worthless sack of shit on this planet. Doubly so now that everyone else on it is dead and gone.
I've been tricked again. Please, please, please just let me die. I've had enough. More than enough. Haven't I gone through enough? Haven't you tortured me enough? Please, I'm begging you. Let me die. Please. I just want to die. Please. Please.
Disgusting.
She sneers at me as she reaches for the knife I dropped. Clutching it in one hand, she crawls over top of me. For what feels like the very first time, I look her directly in the eyes. Ah, that's right. They were green.
You're really just so disgusting.
So she says as she gently plunges the knife into the still healing stab wound on my chest, completely reopening it. After doing so, she pushes it in, then begins to twist and turn the knife inside of me, as if trying to unlock a door with a key. It's excruciating. Far too much. I can't hold back anymore. I can no longer stop myself from screaming, sobbing as I do so. Soon enough, she stops twisting it and then takes the knife out. She lifts my shirt up, enough where she can see almost my entire torso. Then straightens the knife's positioning a bit and starts cutting directly down my chest. She makes a clean slice downwards, stopping right before my belly button. I'm in amounts of agony I didn't even know I could be in, and yet she still doesn't stop. Using the knife to aid her, she pulls my skin apart where she made that cut, exposing my organs and sending me into an even more panicked state. Please, I'm begging you, just kill me already. Please, please. I can't stop repeating these words and others like them. I can't stop myself from begging for the release of death. I can't stop myself from yelling at her. This is the most pain I've ever been in. More pain than anyone should have to be in. I can't stop myself from crying, from screaming. My throat hurts. My body hurts. Everything hurts. It 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 hurts. It's so painful. I can't stand it. I can't comprehend anything anymore. My sight begins to leave me, yet I barely notice. Everything starts fading away, becoming darker and darker. Despite this, I can still see Smile. I can see her removing one of my organs and squeezing it as if it were a stress ball. I watch her as she takes one of my intestinal tubes out of my body, using the knife to cut it out. She whips my face with what I believe to be part of my large intestine, then begins to whip the intestines and organs still inside my body with it. At this point, everything has long since begun to feel cold. Freezing cold. And at that point, I realized something important. This is it. The final sight I see in my life is smiling face, gleeful and covered in my blood, laughing as she plays with my intestines and organs. But I don't care. I finally get to leave. I get to disobey her. I win.
Oh, it seems that my toy's batteries have run dry. Kicking him a bit just to check, I look down at what has quickly become a corpse. No response at all. Completely lifeless. How boring. After all I've put him through, though, I really thought he would last longer than that. Even now, he's such a disappointment, it's almost impressive. I didn't even get to do all that stuff I threatened him with. Of course, I didn't actually have any medical gear or anything, but I still absolutely wanted to put that barbed wire into him while he was alive. Just imagining his reaction to that. No, it's not enough. I want to actually see him writhing from it. But now, I can't. Oh well. Yawning as I do, I stretch my arms into the air and straighten out my back. No good. The ear's already starting to get a bit thin. Is that even the right term? Whatever. I should hurry it up. I suppose I was savoring this last bit of time a bit too much. Not. I'll savor it even more. I'll use up as much of this air as I can before I go out. You really were fun to play with, though. Such a good toy. You really could have stood to listen better, though. If you would have just obeyed me better, it would have made your stupid life a lot easier. Not that you would have deserved such a thing. Stupid useless second. Now glaring, I thrust the knife into his chest and rip his flesh open. Once his insides are fully revealed, I decide to grab one of his ribs and rip it out of his body. It gives way far easier than a rib should, coming out almost easily. He was so weak. Amazing. Oh, I wonder how weak his other parts were. Let's see. I then start to talk to his corpse again, using the snapped rib to poke and stab at his other organs as I do, smiling all the while. You know, if there is an afterlife, I can just pick right back up where I left off. And there, we won't have anything like death to get in our way. I can torture you as much as I like, as much as I deserve to. I crouch closer, getting my face right in front of his, my voice low. And you may think something silly like, I surely won't go to the same afterlife as her, but that's just wishful thinking. The fact is that you were my #1 accomplice, and neither God nor I will ever forgive or forget what you did to me. You're surely going to the same hell as I am, if hell is even a real place. Yes, you're going to hell for sure. My hands start to beat his insides, turning them into an even more of a gory mess than they already were. His blood begins to cover my arms and splatter onto everything else as well. You'll go to hell, and then I'll get there, and I'll make sure that you never know peace again. Even if my crimes are technically worse, yours won't be forgiven either. I'm going to mutilate you, and since you'll already be dead, you won't be able to die again. I can never go too far. I can skin you, rip off your limbs, cut out your eyes, and even mince your disgusting flesh and turn you into tiny cubes, and you still won't be able to die. Laughing at the thought of that, I stand up and put my foot into his insides. I stomp a few times, then kick his corpse a bit away, watching as it lands right beside the circle made of my blood. I've used up a lot of my air now. I can feel it. But I feel nothing but relief now. Getting all of that out, getting to cut him open, getting to say all that, the thought of being able to do all that, it's calmed me down a little, actually. Yes, perfectly calm. And now I can think about what's going to happen next. Guaranteed. Regardless of if there's an afterlife or not, a few facts are absolutely guaranteed. I'll never be stressed out again. I'll never have to eat, drink, or sleep again. I'll never even have to breathe again. Everything I hated doing, I'll never have to do it again. This disgusting, awful world, this planet stained as it is, I'll never have to see it or anything on it ever again. I take a long deep breath, then look back down at useless Second's corpse. Ah, his blood got onto the circle. Not that it really matters, I suppose. I just thought it'd be fun, and that it'd make him more nervous. That book I read before said that this type was meant to gather souls together, or maybe to summon something? Ugh, there was too much in there, I already don't remember. Whatever. No, not whatever. I should repair that a bit. This is the last thing a human being will do here, after all. And leaving something unfinished at the final scene would leave a bad taste in my mouth. Thinking that, I pick up the knife once again, then slit useless Second's throat a little. Blood starts to pour out of it. And as it does, I flip his rib around and get the broadside of it as blood-soaked as I possibly can. So let's see. From what I remember, it should go like this. Using the blood-soaked rib, I fixed the bits of the magic circle that had been messed up, to the best of my memory at least. There, that's better, probably. And now my masterpiece is once again complete. Thank you for your assistance, mysterious mangled mystery corpse. I couldn't have done it without you, really. You did a far better job than Useless Second ever did. The corpse does not respond. No, it would be wrong to treat you like that after all we've been through. And so, Useless Second's corpse, I'd like to formally apologize for calling you a mysterious mangled mystery corpse. I was serious though. You did a far better job than Useless Second ever did. Isn't that sad, scum? Your corpse is more useful than you were. I'm starting to get bored of this. But, it really does feel good. Being the last person alive on the planet and all. It feels amazingly good, especially since I'm the one who caused the mass extinction in the first place. And I'm sure you thought something like, the last one standing is the winner, right? Or something like that. And while that is part of it, I'd like you to know that wasn't the only reason. I cough, a sign of what's soon to come. The reason why I had this space made, why I did all this, it was for you. I go to kick the corpse again, but realizing it might mess the circle up again, I refrain. Yes, you. It was all for you. Or rather, what used to be you, Useless Second. I made this space and took you down here, all just for you. Just for you. Just so that I could watch you fail to kill yourself, so that I could see the light slowly leave your eyes as I mangled your body worse than I ever have before. It was all for you, for your last moments, to make them as miserable as you deserved and needed. Isn't that nice of me? Isn't that great? Aren't you happy, Duo? You should be. Oh, I've been talking more than I should have. I really don't have much time left now. Well, with that out of my system, I guess I'll add the final piece to this puzzle I've made. Walking over to the drawers, I open the topmost one and take a few tiny candles out of it. Placing them in the smaller circles outside with the big one, I slowly light each and every one. Knowing that they won't last long with the tiny amount of oxygen in this room, I start moving faster. Moving back to the drawers, I pull out a single sheet of paper out of the bottommost drawer. On the paper is a drawing that I made a while ago now. It consists of a single character on a pure white background. Something many artists, both wannabe and real ones, have created. This character is a mess. As strange looking as Duo is ugly, and yet as cute as I am beautiful. A humanoid with skin I forgot to color in, with bright purple hair, glowing yellow eyes with black sclera, a red scarf that becomes fire at the end, and a mess of an outfit that makes no sense together. Aesthetically, or at least color-wise though, I think it looks fine. Its name is Rel, a name with no meaning, just because I thought it sounded nice. And this paper will go in the middle of the circle, completing it. What a joke. As if anything like this would actually work. However, if this does by some miracle work, maybe one day you could grow your hair out like how I did. It might look nice. Just kidding. And with that, and yet another cough, I decide that it's about time to end it. Walking back over to the drawer, I reach into the same drawer that the BB gun had been in and pull out a real gun, a 5.7. My walk slows a bit as I move to the side of the magic circle opposite Duo's corpse. It's time for the final sacrifice. I look up at the ceiling, staring into the eyes of whatever god might exist. Locking eyes and staring into its soul, that god is probably in a panic right now. Its entire world just got destroyed after all. And so, I stare at it with my usual twisted smile, and I announce, I win. I look down at my creation one last time, closing my eyes as I put the gun to my head. And then, with that same smile, I pull the trigger. And that was chapter 1. uh, no, it's sclera, not sclerol. Did I slur it? I've been trying really hard to talk as best I can. Also, wow, it's taking like an hour for each chapter. That's crazy. Alright. Also, Richard, I want you to know it was really hard not to crack up at the death chamber joke. Alright. And so we move on. Chapter 2, Rel. How to begin this? Let's see. I suppose it should start after that happened. After that, exactly what happened again? Ah, right. How funny that I, of all people, would need to remind myself. Well then. It took around 100 years for all of the life on and in the planet to gather. Yes, at that exact spot where the final bit of life was extinguished. Although she never expected it to. Its final plan succeeded. The life energy of every being on the planet, every cell and atom, gathered there. And once they did, the life of the very planet itself, its heart, so to speak, gathered as well. And then, once that had gathered there, a spark occurred. Miraculously, the paper that was at the very center of it all had a few cells left alive. One of the only things that had yet to rot, even after all that time had passed. The final miracle of that world. And so, due to that miracle, that piece of paper containing living cells became the host to every bit of life that gathered there in that room. The souls and bits of life couldn't escape to the afterlife, as in that specific world, one did not exist. The rules and cycles of life and death broken from the extinction of everything. They were forced to gather at a certain spot instead. A spot where the final people had been. However, that piece of paper was far too small to be a good post for everything. And so, in an instinctive move, the great mass of life and souls sacrificed half of their number. In doing so, they managed to form a body based off of the one drawn on the paper they had taken to. It finished forming in an instant, becoming corporeal and real as can be. In the first few seconds of its life, however, it was as still and lifeless as a doll. This is because it was. Until the remaining life and souls entered it, it was akin to a doll. Even its shape was reminiscent of a doll, having not even a belly button. Its shape remained this way, but in terms of movement and life, that did change. The being awoke. Upon awakening, the being had no memories or thoughts. This is because it had only just begun to exist. It had no voice in its head, no ability to think, just a vague collection of feelings and instincts. When it first opened its eyes, it understood almost nothing. It was like a baby, and like a beast as well. It saw a strange room surrounding it, and could not understand any part of anything that was in it. Not the furniture, not the strange markings surrounding it, and surely not the two corpses that remained on the floor due to being unable to decompose. It wandered around for a bit, managing to crawl around, and eventually gained the instinctual desire to leave and go somewhere else. It seemingly recognized the door as an obstacle barring from this, and began to hit it, but to no avail. The being continued to hit the door like an animal, despite it not working. And eventually, its first miracle happened. The intense desire to leave that room manifested in a rip in space-time. The being stared at it, not understanding or comprehending it, and then crawled right in, following its instincts. For the very first time, it crossed boundaries that few usually get to, and traveled to an entirely different world, a different universe. Upon coming out of that space-time rip, that being was entranced by all that it saw. A city full of life, full of colors and commotion. People that vaguely resembled it, all walking around, talking, and living their own lives. And so it crawled. The being crawled all over, exploring the city as many people gave it strange looks. Eventually, some of those people began speaking to it. It could not understand this, however, and began to become annoyed at the noise they were all making. And that the people were obstructing its path. It was annoyed, and wanted to understand what the noises that they were making were. And so, inadvertently and by accident, its second miracle happened. It became able to speak. Able to not only speak, but understand the language being spoken to them. The being began to speak. However, this only horrified everyone around it, and they watched confusedly as people began to run away from it in a terrified frenzy. The being couldn't understand why everyone was running away all of a sudden. It couldn't understand anything about these people, but it wanted to, it yearned to. A subconscious desire, but a strong one nonetheless. And because of that, its third miracle occurred. It gained a thought process and began to think. Shocked at the sudden voice in its head, it started using this to try and piece some things together. It started thinking about how strange it was that everyone was running, and wanted to know the reason why. And so, its fourth miracle occurred. Suddenly, it understood why. Upon seeing the insides of its mouth, the people who had previously thought it to be a strange person in a costume realized that it was a monster. The inside of a normal human's mouth usually has teeth, a pink tongue, and pink inner walls as well. This being's mouth had sharp, shark-like teeth, and both its tongue and inner walls were completely white, as snow-white as its skin. In realizing this fact, the being also realized another one. It realized that it was a monster. And it also realized in that moment that every single person they could see was reacting to them in the exact same way. Everyone was running for their lives, getting away from it. It tilts its head at the seam, wondering how a species that could think and talk as they do could all react in the same way. General knowledge is forced into its head thanks to this desire, and it comes to the conclusion that they might be a hive mind. It decides to stand up like how the people are, on both feet, but reactions remain the same. It runs towards someone who seems to be acting differently, but in the end they run screaming just like the rest. Eventually, as it begins to feel annoyed once again, a person steps out of what it learns is a vehicle. That person pulls out a gun and without any hesitation fires a single shot at the being. It reels in pain, feeling the sensation of it for the first time. As it writhes on the ground, it wishes that it couldn't feel this intense pain. Another miracle happens, and it stops being able to feel anything at all. It blinks, the pain suddenly completely gone, and stands up once again. The people watching are all horrified as they watch this happen. More bullets are fired, and more enter the being's body. Its movements become considerably slowed down as more and more shots are fired at it, and eventually it stops being able to move its limbs entirely. This causes it to understand the concept of being damaged. It wishes for the bullets to all leave and for the damage to be repaired. A miracle happens. And at that point, it begins to understand its own ability. The ability to do anything, to have any wish granted, no matter what it might be. Not caring how it got this power, or what causes them to be able to do such a thing. It instead shifts its focus onto the people opposing it. It decides that it doesn't want to be damaged anymore, and wishes for its body to become invincible. More bullets are fired at it, but now they simply bounce right off. And yet they keep shooting at it, despite acknowledging with screams that their weapons seem to no longer have any effect. At that point, the being decides that these creatures that it was based off of are dull, and not as intelligent as they seemed. Annoyed at this revelation, and the fact that the gunmen would not stop firing, it decided to force everything to come to a stop. It brings one of them closer to itself, and then promptly dismembers him, quickly and violently ripping off both of his arms so that he could no longer shoot. It watches as he writhes and screams on the ground, quickly dying from the combination of shock and blood loss, as other members of his squad begin to run away themselves. The being, however, did not understand what had happened at first. It was confused as to why the man had suddenly stopped moving entirely, and what the stuff coming out of his body was. And so it learned exactly why, and exactly what. In doing so, the being learned about death, and in turn, life. When humans suffer too much damage, they will die. That is an irreversible, undeniable truth. And it then decided that it would simply kill any humans that annoy it. And so it did. It killed many, many people, due to not wanting to die, and not wanting to lose to this strange invader from another world. Many people came to fight it. All of them died, in non-gruesome ways. This is not a lie. At that time, the being did not yet know about the concept of torture. It didn't even have the mental capacity to think of such a thing. Eventually, though, due to the constant cycle of violence, the being became bored. It was tired of everyone either trying to kill it or simply running away from it. It was sick of all the screaming, all the gunfire, all the explosions. All of it. Everything. And so, it wished for everything aside from itself to just die. And so it did. The worst sort of miracle occurred for the very first time. The entire planet and all life on it quickly withered away into nothing. It destroyed the world in a matter of mere seconds, simply by wishing it so. Unbeknownst to the monster at this time, this action immensely powered it up. It had begun to weaken, due to using its ability from too many amazing and fantastical things. In destroying this world, it not only recharged its ability, but strengthened it a bit as well. All life was absorbed into it, and it was left completely alone once again. And so, it once again opened a rip in space-time, this time on purpose. It left yet again for another world. This next world was nicer for a short while, The monster kept its mouth shut and simply explored. When its true nature was exposed, however, the same events as in the world it had just come from repeated. It was once again ran away from, shot at, attacked, and screams filled the air. Once again, the monster decided to simply kill everyone that annoyed it, and eventually, the entire world. When left alone once again, it came to yet another realization. It will always be this way. No matter where it goes, people will always react to a monster in the same way. People will always attack a monster. They'll never try to accept it. Every human being is exactly the same. Every world is boring. After realizing this, the monster stopped trying to communicate with or understand humans. It simply destroyed them, playing with them in a violent way as if to try and entertain itself. Countless worlds and lives were lost and absorbed into that monster, killing and destroying everything as if it were part of a game. The monster even took to destroying entire galaxies after a bit. Once again, unknowingly, in doing so, these actions also served to make the monster more and more powerful, far surpassing its original strength, which was already on the level of a god. The monster became an existence that should never have been, one capable of anything at almost no cost, an unstoppable war, an unstoppable force, carried only by small whims and desires. And so it went. And so it killed, and killed, 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 destroyed, and annihilated. Eventually, though, the monster did indeed get bored with this as well. It took a long time, though. It took about 500 years. 523 to be precise. On an unspecified day, on the 523rd year that the monster had done nothing, almost nothing but kill, maim, and destroy, it had a chance encounter. No, perhaps a fateful encounter would be a more kind term. Yes, the monster had a fateful meeting. It had just arrived in another world, one in a modern world, an ordinary one that some might call futuristic, but those living in it would not. A world much like the ones nearly everyone knows. If you're reading this, perhaps then it's probably akin to the world you know best, perhaps even the one you reside in. I digress. I suppose I could always go back and edit this letter, but no, I will simply continue to chronicle my thoughts and tell you about this monster as I wish to. Back to the story. The monster was floating high in the air above a town, looking down upon it as a bright starry sky shone down upon everything. Despite the fact that everything always ended in bloodshed, it had begun to go back to how it was when it first started to exist and understand things. It would no longer immediately begin to kill everyone. It would get to it once the world devolved into that, but until then, it would simply explore it at its own leisure. Despite having seen so many, it still thought the sights of various worlds could be enchanting at times. As it floated in the air there, it suddenly felt a gaze upon it. Quickly scanning the sky around it and seeing no aerial creatures nor aircraft, it decided to simply force itself to know where the gaze was coming from. Upon learning that it was a human, it became interested to know how a human could see it at this distance. This time, instead of forcing itself to know how, it decided to just see for itself. It teleported right behind the human, floating behind her as she stood on her balcony. Huh? The human girl began to fiddle with the strange device in front of her, moving part of it left, then right, then back to where it had been. That's so strange. They were just here. Where did they go? the monster decides to find out what the large object is, learning about a telescope and all of its functions and potentials. It decides that humans must like to look at space. It stops floating, putting its feet down on the floor behind the girl. The floorboards creak as the monster's weight presses down on them, alerting the girl to its presence. The monster waits for the inevitable scream, but it does not come. Instead, all the girl does is look surprised and give out a small gasp of amazement. You're the one I just saw up there, right? Yes. Oh wow, you can speak our language! That's so cool! I'm Asha, what's your name? The monster looks blankly at the girl. Having the rare opportunity to speak with a human, it decides to question her instead of just giving itself the knowledge it seeks. It gains new information through a different method. What is a name? A moment of silence follows as the girl stares stunned at the monster. Her expression quickly shifts into one of pure concentration, however, as she puts a few fingers to her chin and contemplates how to answer this. Does your, kind not have names? She looks worriedly at the monster. I do not know what a kind is. I do not know what a name is either. Her expression changes into what the monster learns is a stressed smile. It quickly melts away, though, becoming a softer, more kind sort of smile. She takes one of the monster's hands into her own two, then walks to its side and grasps at its fist. Unfurl this finger, please. She gently taps on the monster's index finger as she says so. Curious as to what might happen, the monster obliges. Still holding onto the monster's hand, the girl points the monster's finger towards the night sky above them. She moves it to the left until it seems to be pointing at one of the stars light years away. Do you see the star you're pointing at? Yes. That star is called Vega. That star's name is Vega. The monster begins to understand the concept of a name. As it does, the girl shifts the monster's hand around 2 more times, pointing it at different stars. This star's name is Deneb, and this one over here is Altair. I understand now. Great! So, what's your name then? I do not know. The girl. No. Asha looks surprised at this answer, but that surprise fades away into a weak smile. Yeah, I should have expected that. Wait a moment. I can find out what it is, if one exists. Upon learning of them, the monster became curious as well. It wanted to know what its own name was. And so, it wished, and so it found out. My name is Rel. It found out that its name was decided arbitrarily. It sounded nice. It had no meaning. It could have been absolutely anything. But this is what it was. Rel? Yes, Rel. Asha is silent for a moment, then shows the monster a big smile. Rel! That's kind of a cool name. Kind of cute, actually. And kind of mysterious, just like you. I think it's perfect for you. Well then, now that I know it, it's super duper nice to meet you, Rel. Meaning applied, where there was originally none. Cool, cute, mysterious, like you. The monster found it hard to comprehend this. A hole that it didn't know existed had slowly begun to be filled. As this happened, Rel thought to themselves. They thought about how strange this whole situation was. This was the first human that they were able to converse with face to face, and not have them run away screaming. The very first person that didn't regard them as a monster. The only one to think something of them. Rel couldn't fathom this. They couldn't understand it, and so they wished to know. They wished to know why this person acted differently. The knowledge came instantly. Their answer was delivered, their wish granted as always. And for the first time in their life, in response to that answer, they began to cry. That answer was a painfully obvious one. Obvious to everyone but an inhuman monster who had only experienced the worst. And that was the truth that every single human being is different. Each has their own likes and dislikes, their own names, skills, beliefs, past and future. Huh? Hey now, why are you crying? It's okay. I don't really know what's wrong, but everything will be okay, I swear. As tears fall down their blank face, Rel finds themselves in Asha's embrace. It's incredibly warm and feels nice. For some reason, this causes Rel to cry even harder. Their cries turning into sobs. They let out emotions that they didn't even know they had. As Rel cries, Asha guides them into her apartment and sits them down on her bed. Supplying them with a box of tissues and holding their hand, she attempts to silently comfort them as they try and fail to speak to her. Their incoherent words soon stop as they realize the futility in trying, and they simply continue to cry until they tire themselves out. When they finally do, however, they realize that they don't want to speak. They don't want to tell Asha the reason that they were crying. For the first time, and seemingly out of nowhere, Rel had begun to care about what a human thought. They wanted Asha's opinion of them to be positive. They didn't want her to hate them. They couldn't tell her. They couldn't tell her that they didn't know. That everyone is different. Even if general reactions may overlap due to instincts, every human is completely different. Everyone is special and filled with life, all having different things they want to do and accomplish. Every single one. Are you okay now? Yes. So, what was wrong? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, of course, but in my experience, talking about things can usually help at least a little bit. And even if it can't actually help, it might make you feel a little better. And so, due to their newly found feelings, Rel does another thing that they've never done before. For the first time in their life, they decide to hide information. They lie. I was unaware that your kind was different. Until today, I had resigned myself to thinking that you were all the same. That every person would react in the same way. And until today, that was a fact to me. It had been proven time and time again. Skirting around the rest of the matter, purposefully withholding the fact that they had killed and destroyed an uncountable amount of lives, worlds, and entire universes, they told Asha around half of the full story. Because of that, it was a bit hard for her to understand why Rel would have cried over that. Unknown to Rel, Asha quickly figured out that something was being hidden from her. She chose not to pry, and simply continued to comfort Rel. There. I'm not entirely sure of what you've been through, but you're right. Everyone is different, and that's what makes this world so interesting and fun. It'd be terribly boring if everyone shared the same opinions and would only say and do the same things. She smiled at them and patted their head. Despite knowing she's not being told the full truth, she continues to think fondly of them. Asha is undeterred, continuing to want to be Rel's friend. And Rel was happy. For the first time in their life, They felt the emotion known as happiness. Yes, the worlds I saw were terribly boring. But they won't be anymore. That is what Rel thought. The two of them continued to talk late into the night, moving from topic to topic, talking about anything that they wanted to. Hey, how does your scarf do that? I'm not sure. Well, it's really amazing. I wonder if it's actually hot. I'll check, since you're mortal. Oh, it's not. Not in the slightest. Really? So I can touch it then? Oh, Rel. Yes. What's your home like? What is a home? It's where you stay, where you live, or where everyone you love is at. The place you go back to when you're tired after you're out. Where you relax, where you sleep. I see. I do not have one of those. Oh, well then. You do now. I do? Of course. My home is your home now. Well, it's an apartment, but still. What is the difference? People usually refer only to houses as homes. It's just a small difference in meaning, but if it's where you live, then it's home. Even if it's an apartment or if it's just a tent. Okay, I understand. Now then, Asha, what's sleep? You don't know what sleep is either? No. Sleep is when you stop being conscious for a few hours so that your brain can rest. Huh. That sounds strange. It's not that strange. Everyone does it. Every human and every animal out there has to sleep. Everyone? Yes. And if people don't get enough sleep, they'll be super grumpy. Grumpy. So you fell asleep, and then what? Do you simply just stay in that state until someone takes you out of it? No, of course not. I wouldn't be able to live alone like this if so. Well, I don't live alone anymore, but still. It goes like this. We lay down on the bed, get all comfy, close our eyes, and eventually we fall asleep. And while we're asleep, we see visions made from our subconscious. They don't always make sense, but some of them can be very interesting. Anyway, we call those visions dreams, and after the dream ends, we wake up. So, you sleep, dream, and the ending of the dream triggers your awakening. Not exactly, it's more the other way around. The end of your sleep triggers the end of your dream. And also, other things can make you wake up early, causing you to not be able to see your entire dream. This seems complicated, and still strange. It's not, I promise. Just give it a try, alright? Or, wait, you didn't know what it was before and you're acting like this is new information. You've really never slept before? No, never. Wow, I guess you can't then? That's kinda sad. If I want to, I can make myself able to. Really? Whoa, how? The same way I learned what my name was earlier. Anytime that I wish for something, I instantly receive it. If I want to know something and wish for that knowledge instantly, it will flow into my mind. If I wish for something to become a different color, it will, no matter what it is. That's... wow. Asha was stunned at that revelation. Until that moment, she had taken Rel to be the clueless child of a distant species from some other world or star. When Rel said that, however, her opinion instantly changed. Rel, are you God? I do not know what that is. It's, you said you can find things out just by wanting to, right? I like it better when you tell me now. This time I think it's something you would better learn on your own. I don't really think I could explain something like that correctly. Alright, If you think so, then I will. And so, Rel wished to know what a god was. That wish was granted, and so they knew. They knew that was not what they were, what they are. I'm sorry, but no, this does not describe me, I think. Really? But gods need faith in order to exist, and are generally limited in what they can do. They also rarely, if ever, show themselves to mortals. Gods are bound by strict rules, rule over something, or do both. None of these things have any relevance towards me. I see. So you're not God and you're not a god. Then, well, I guess it really doesn't matter what you are. You're you, and that's what really matters. What really matters? I see. Wait, you said that anything you wish for happens instantly? Yes, the second that I finish desiring it. Well, that's amazing for one, but for two, that could be dangerous. Dangerous. Rel tilts their head in confusion, and Asha just barely stops herself from remarking on how cute she finds that action. Yes, it can be incredibly dangerous if you're thinking to yourself and you wish for something bad without really meaning it. I did not ever think about that. They didn't have to, after all, since this is the first time they've ever communicated with someone. For the past 500 years, they didn't have to stop and consider much of anything. Running almost purely on instincts, on a sense of longing that they didn't understand. I thought not. That's alright though. We can think about it now. Alright, what do you suggest? Limit that power immediately. Or, well, I'd be ashamed to actually limit something that's currently limitless. I'd say instead of that, maybe just make it so that you have to really want something to happen before it can happen. But how would I know? And how would I do such a thing? Oh, I know! You could give it an activation word, or maybe a whole phrase. That way you can think whatever you want to, but unless you use that specific word, or maybe words, nothing will happen. I see. That sounds like a good idea. What sort of phrase do you suggest? Oh, so you'd rather it be a phrase? Okay then, how about, I really, really want this, or maybe, I am sure I would like this. Those are a bit long. I was under the assumption it would be shorter. But if you think that... No, wait, you don't have to settle for them if you don't like them. Alright. Then what else? Oh, I've got a good one. Asha raises her hand into the air for dramatic effect, then continues. How about, it is so! It's short, concise, to the point, and it's got an orderly air to it, like someone super powerful like you would say. Yes, it is so. Yes, I think that would be good. Great! Oh, and if you want it even shorter, you could shorten it into an abbreviation. If you need to do one faster, you could go is instead. For ease of anyone who happens to read this, I would like to add that is pronounced like ease. For instance, if you would say Greece or fleece, but took the first two letters out. Moving on. Rel nodded at Asha and got to work immediately, setting that up within their own mind. A quick test a minute later proved that it worked, and they now needed to properly activate their ability. It was nicely contained and controlled, and would be forevermore. The two continued to chat into the morning, and soon the sun's light began to shine. The first traces of its rays rose over the rooftops and the treetops, bringing a bit of light into the world. Oh, Rel, come over here, please. Asha seemed dead tired, but still wanted to show Rel something she thought would be amazing to them.
She took their hand into her own, walking them out onto the balcony where they first met.
What is it? Why do we need to come out here again? Here, just look. Look over at the trees over there. You see how it's getting brighter? That's because the sun is rising.
But the sun is a static thing. Everyone in every universe I've been to has never moved.
No, it's not actually rising. We just call it that. A sunrise. Because to us, it appears as if it is. Here, just watch with me, okay?
Okay.
Oh, but don't stare directly at the sun, okay? It'll hurt your eyes, and in the worst case scenario, you could go blind.
Don't worry, Asha. Nothing can hurt me no matter what. I could swim in the sun if I wanted to.
Let's not test that, okay? Let's just watch the sunrise here.
All right. And so Asha sat down on the single wooden chair located on her balcony. She then took Rel's hand once more, pulling them close and putting them into her lap. The sun's rays began to brighten the world even further, and a small bit of warmth began to blanket everything and everyone in the light's path. The sun rose, and Rel couldn't take their eyes off of it. The way the sun lit up the world, the way the sky appeared to be on fire, the brilliant hues painted on the clouds and everything above around them. It was all so beautiful. Rel would never forget that moment or that morning. Not for even a moment. Rel regarded that moment, that they watched that sunrise, as the first true moment of their life. The first morning that they were alive. Everything that came before this was just a dusty prequel, made to be forgotten.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Asha pets the top of Rel's head, fluffing their hair up, as they continue to watch the sun slowly raise higher and higher into the sky. They've never felt this warm before.
But sorry to cut this short, Rel, but I'm kind of really tired, to be honest.
Oh, why?
I told you before, people need to sleep. And I haven't done that for a long while now. I'm doing all I can just to stay awake here with you right now.
In that case, why not sleep?
Sleeping outside would be bad.
Why?
I'll tell you later, okay? For now, let's just get to bed, okay?
Okay.
Asha collapses onto her bed, and Rel watches her. They imitate her, flopping onto it right beside her, and causing her to smile once again. She rolls over a bit, putting her head onto her pillow as she kicks her shoes off. Okay, I know it's morning now, but typically when people go to sleep, they tell each other good night.
I'll remember that. Good night, Asha.
Good night, Rel.
And with that, Asha shuts her eyes. Before long, she quickly drifts off to sleep. Rel, however, stays awake, still feeling apprehensive about sleeping. They decide to watch Asha for a bit. Her face and breathing both remain calm and steady, and nothing worrying occurs. After watching for around 10 minutes, Rel decides that sleeping might really be fine. So, they force themselves to sleep. Around 9 hours later, Asha woke up. When she tried to sit up and get out of bed, she found herself unable to move. The reason? Rel had tightly wrapped their arms around her, hugging her in their sleep. Upon realizing this, Asha realized she was trapped with no escape. She couldn't bear to break out of their grip forcefully, and it was so cute that she didn't want to awaken them. And so she laid there, simply enjoying the moment. And she began to think to herself about Rel, about how incredible they are, how powerful they are, and also about how cute they are. To her, their appearance was as cute as it was strange.
The way that they were clueless about things obvious to her and anyone else was cute as well. It was as if she had suddenly gained a little sibling. Soon, though, Rel began to stir. Asha. Oh, you're awake! Good morning! Quickly realizing that people say these things before and after they. Wait. Quickly realizing that people say these things both before they sleep and after waking, Rels chooses to simply repeat the phrase instead of questioning it. Good morning. How was your first sleep? Did you have a nice dream? That was a dream. Those things I saw. Yeah, none of it was real, so if anything bad happened, you shouldn't worry about it or think about it too hard. I really hope nothing bad happened in your very first dream, though. All I saw was a girl with long hair hitting a sick-looking boy. Hitting him a lot. That doesn't sound very pleasant. Well, I'm sure your next dream will be better. Is there a way to control them without me forcing myself to be able to? Not really. Some people can, but that's extremely rare. I see. That's unfortunate. I don't think it is. In fact, I think it's great that people usually can't. Why is that? Because things are more fun when you don't know what to expect. More fun like that? Yes, way more fun. Now then, since you didn't know about eating, I'll wager that you don't know about eating or drinking either, do you? No, I don't. Alright, follow me to the kitchen then. Rel followed Asha to the kitchen, watching as she made a delicious breakfast for the two of them. It was an ordinary one, consisting of just scrambled eggs and toast with peanut butter on top, but it was incredibly tasty. Asha smiled as Rel ate, happy that a meal she cooked was the first thing that they ate. Explaining the concept of food and eating to them as she cooked, however, earned far less smiles. It was a bit hard at first, teaching a being like Rel about how humans, animals, and plants alike all need nourishment to sustain themselves. This type of explanation was common over the first few weeks that the two lived together. The list of things that Asha had to explain was almost endless, as Rel never had any idea about much of anything. Despite that, Asha never got tired of explaining things to Rel. She never got tired, even while explaining even the most common of things, such as when she had to explain what a sink was or how it worked, or how a microwave could make food hot in an instant. The look of wonder in Rel's big, bright yellow eyes was just so cute to her. She couldn't resist them. In her eyes, there was no one cuter than Rel. No person, animal, object, or anything else. Nothing. The feeling was mutual, though, unbeknownst to her. Both were enamored with the other. One might even say it was a form of love. At least, I would have liked to believe that it was. I would have liked for it to have been. That would have been nice. I should delete that part. It made me cry just now, and it'll make me cry again when I go back over this later. And yet, I can't bring myself to. How pathetic. Moving on. Asha and Rel soon became inseparable. Day after day, they would eat together, play together, and go to all sorts of places together. After helping them disguise themselves as a human being, Asha took Rel to all sorts of interesting and fun places. From restaurants, to an arcade, to a fishing hole, to a library. Every day was so much fun. On days when they couldn't or didn't want to go outside, there was still plenty of fun to be had. They would play games, watch movies, cook together, and even surf the internet at rare times. At one point, the two even learned how to sew together. After getting as good as she wanted to at it, Asha made a hat just for Rel, a hat that she thought would go with the strange outfit that they always wear, a hat that Rel would end up wearing nearly every single day, since it was a loving gift from her, made by her just for them. You know, Rel, what is it? I only thought of this now, but when we go out, you make everyone think you look different, but you've never actually changed your clothes, have you? No, I have never removed these. Wow, that's insane. Hey, why don't you take them off and try on something else? I have plenty of stuff from when I was younger. I'm sure you'd fit into all of it. That's okay. I'm fine like this. Asha offered multiple times to give them clothing, and even to teach them how to bathe. They refused each time. It was embarrassing just thinking about it. If Rel could go back in time. No, Rel could go back in time. And yet they won't. Even if they did, they probably wouldn't change anything. Anything except for one thing. But even then, they refused to. Anyhow, time passed merrily. The two spent a joyful year together, in which Rel learned many things, in which the two became closer and closer, learning nearly everything about the other. Nearly everything. Since Rel now absolutely could never tell her the truth. Never. A bit over a year passed in the blink of an eye, and it seemed like they would never end. However, one day, everything came to a sudden halt. Come on, this way, we're almost there! She called out to Rel, who had stopped to look at some flowers sprouting from a bush. Sorry, I'm coming. Rel stood up, turning around just in time to see Asha waving at them from across the street. Just in time to watch as a speeding car missed the turn. Just in time to watch her body. I can't write this. No, I have to. I don't want to write it, but I have to. And I have to stop crying, too. I should delete this part later. Rel watched Asha's body crumple beneath the car's weight. They watched the life leave her eyes as her limbs became twisted messes. Watched as the vehicle sped off afterwards, not wanting to be implicated for the crime. As panicked passerbys called the ambulance service, Rel approached her corpse, their legs shaking, and their face in more of a panic than anyone's. They gently lifted her body up and teleported away with it. Not caring who sees them or any consequences, they take her back to their home. They set her down on the bed, and then did what they thought was best. First, they made all of her injuries heal almost instantly. Second, they made it so that there would be no residual pain. Third, they made her live once again. They wished for Asha to come back to life, and so she did. However, she was not the same. Somehow, something had gone terribly, horribly, irreversibly wrong. Asha acted frenzied, crazed, scared. What did you do? What did you do? She screamed at Rel, yelling at them, asking them over and over what they had done. This, in turn, frightened them. They couldn't understand why she was acting this way, what they had done wrong. Rel could not understand, and Asha could not explain. She would only repeat the same phrases over and over, continuing to ask Rel what they did, why they did it. How could they have done such a thing? As Rel began to cry, Asha stood up. Moving inhumanly, she moved over to the dresser, putting her hands on the top. Moving erratically, shaking non-stop, she pushed numerous things off as her hands slid across the surface. After watching her break a few things from doing this, Rel realized that she was searching for something, and quickly, almost too quickly for how she was moving, she found it. She took the scissors off of it and brought them to her neck. Clutching the pair of scissors as tightly as she used to hold Rel's hand, she stabbed herself in the neck. And then Asha died again. Afterwards, Rel was incredibly obviously upset, to the point where they cried, sobbed even, and still do every time they have to think about this or relive the moment. They couldn't understand what had went wrong, what had happened, why she acted that way, why she was so upset, why she looked so hurt, why she couldn't stop shaking, why her eyes looked the way they did, why she wanted to die. And they would never understand. They never truly wished to. They never forced themselves to know. After witnessing that volatile reaction, they couldn't bring themselves to. They couldn't even get themselves to try again. Yes, that's right. After that, Rel left Asha dead. They didn't try to bring her back a second time, and they swore to her that they would never attempt to bring back the dead. Never again. Slowly, carefully, they bend down and pick up her corpse once more, and again they place it onto the bed. This time, however, they do not heal the wound. Instead, they turn themselves invisible to any and all humans, then contact the authorities. There is a girl on the floor in this apartment. She is dead. The door is open. It appears to be suicide, and the address is... After a wait that's far too long, about a half an hour or so, the police finally show up. Baffled by the scene, after a minuscule amount of investigating, they rule it a suicide. Rel watched, staying out of the way, as they searched the room for anything to identify her by. After finding her wallet, the officer stepped out of the room. Staying with the body, Rel simply waited there. Humans that looked different from the policemen arrived, seeming to be doctors of some sort. They checked the body for a pulse, and after observing it for a short time, confirmed that she was completely and totally dead. The doctors left for a few minutes, then shortly returned. They began to put a sort of cover onto the body before loading it onto what seemed to be a sort of wheeled bed. As her body was taken away, Rel followed it. They followed as it was taken outside and placed into an ambulance and driven straight to the morgue. A few hours later, they accompanied her body to the funeral parlor, where it was stored for a few days. They stood there, unmoving, until the funeral parlor staff eventually came back for her body. Rel watched as eventually they took the body out, dressed it in a fancy-looking dress, and gave it a small bit of makeup before placing it inside of a casket. They stayed right beside her during the viewing, and remained there after the event ended, Even after the body was loaded into yet another vehicle, they stayed with her. They stayed with her even as her body was sent to be cremated. Even when her body was loaded into the cremation chamber, they stayed with her, hugging her as the unknowing operator closed it. Rel watched as the fire sprang to life around the two of them, melting her flesh and destroying every bit of her except for her bones. Invincible, but able to still feel the burning, searing pain, Rel endured, not wanting to leave her. They remained with her, even after the burning was finished, watching as Asha was ground into ashes, with no trace of her left except for the dust of her bones. They watched as they were placed into a tiny box with no distinct features on it. Soon, far too soon, the day of the funeral closed in. Many people gathered, more people than Rel thought would come, and yet, thankfully, there remained a few empty seats near the back. Rel sat in one of them, watching and listening as people began to speak. First, the priest spoke. Then, some of her family members spoke. Then, a few of the friends she had spoke. And Rel did not speak. They listened, biting their lip, their face twisted into a scowl, as everyone talked about Asha, about her life, about her as a person. They learned many, many things about her that day. Things that they wanted to learn from her, not from a stranger. After about half an hour of this, the procession slowly came to a close. The box containing Asha's ashes was lowered into a hole in the ground, and the dirt was shoveled on top of it. It was completely and totally encased in dirt, buried in front of the gravestone made solely for her. And with that, everything was over. It was all over. As the guests gathered began to stand up, getting ready to leave, Rel could hold it in no longer. Their emotions came pouring out in the form of tears, flowing down their face and hitting the ground. Invisible to everyone, now completely alone in the world, they lost the small amount of composure that they had managed to keep this whole time. Agony flowing, they cried. They sobbed. It was loud and ugly, and it was their despair alone. Footsteps quietly tapped all around them as they cried on the ground there. Soon after a long 10 minutes had passed, everyone was gone. Everyone except for Rel and Asha's parents. Managing to finally pull themselves together, they slowly sat up and wiped their tears on their gloves, their eyes lingering on their hand afterwards. Pulling their gaze away, they look up at Asha's parents. The two of them stand in front of her grave, gazing forlornly at it. They're both old and incredibly frail looking, as if a stray breeze would knock them over. A single smack might break them in half. And yet, there was a strong warmth to them, one that Asha had herself, when she was still here. The father turns to leave, taking his wife's hand as he does. She turns and begins to walk as well, but stops in an instant. She looks right at where Rel is standing, a small distance away from the two. And she smiles. "You can come out, dear. It's all right." Against their better judgment, and after thinking it over for just a few seconds, Rel decides to accept what may as well be an invitation to speak. they decide to show themselves. Slowly, quietly, and incredibly nervously, they reveal themselves. And as they do, they wondered how the old lady could have known they were there. "You're the little friend she would always talk about, aren't you?" Rel did not respond, their hands trembling. They just stood there, staring. "I understand. There's no need to answer. We loved her too, dear." Her voice was old and creaky, yet smooth somehow, like an old melody. Not painful to listen to, and yet Rel could feel nothing but pain as she spoke. "We're going to miss her too." Her husband began to rub her back, and she nodded and smiled at him in response. She then turned back to Rel, and after taking two more steps forward, raised her arms up and opened them wide, with a somber, sad smile on her face. She invited Rel in for a hug, and yet, looking at them, all Rel could think of was Asha. Her face reminded them too much of her. "Come here, dear. It'll be okay." But they did not accept. In a display of pure emotion never before seen in them, they turned around and began to run as their eyes once again began to produce tears. They ran out of the graveyard, into the road beside it, into the forest at the other end, and far beyond. They ran and ran and ran, going further than they'd ever gone before, past many more roads, many fields, many developments, out of the city's limits and even further beyond that. Rel ran until their legs were crying out in pain, and they could recognize absolutely nothing about their surroundings. And once they could finally take no more, they collapsed in the middle of a field, starting to sob uncontrollably once again. And so they cried. They let out their despair once more. They tore into the soft earth with their hands, clumping it as they cried. Then, as if their cries reached the heavens themselves, small droplets of water began to fall upon them and the land around them. Slowly at first, then picking up speed, rain fell down from the dark gray clouds above. As the storm picked up, Rel simply continued to cry out. They let the wind, rain, and the sky above absorb it all. Blush. They let the wind, rain, and the sky above it all absorb their screams and pain as they wailed uncontrollably. Eventually, they wore themselves out completely and passed out in the dark rain. Asleep in the darkness, they dreamed that Asha was still there with them, still teaching them new things, still living with them, that everything was still fine. But it was not to be. When they later awoke, they found themselves to be completely soaked. It had rained all night and continued a bit after the morning had begun. Upon realizing that, Rel could only think as they sat there in the mud. Even the world itself is sad that Asha is gone. It was the only truth to them, the only reason why it would rain then. Completely alone in the world, Rel sits up in that muddy field. They tilt their head, staring up at the dark sky, watching as the clouds slowly drift further and further away. And yet, no matter how many of them float off, more take their place, and the sky remains dark. They fall backwards, laying down on their back, not caring about how dirty they get. And for a long while, for at least a few hours, they couldn't even bother to get up. Eventually, though, they did. They got up and began to walk, head still tilted upwards, eyes still glued to the clouds. Crunching the wet grass and sodden ground, they tread onwards, and after reaching the edge of a cliff, they stop their feet, looking down at the abyss below. Without a word, or even another thought, they then decide to teleport somewhere else. They return to Asha's grave. Looking left, right, and then spinning around, they can see that they're completely alone there. No one else remains. Everyone has gone home, which is how they wanted it to begin with. Bending down, then moving into a crouch, Rel places their forehead against her gravestone. Unable to cry anymore, they simply stay like that for a few seconds before moving their head away. They stare at the bare gravestone and the small amount of flowers placed in the vase beside it. Shivering from the cold wind on their still soaked body, they look at the small amount of information written down on it. Asha Minent, 1993 to 2014. That was all that was written on it. No other information was provided. Nothing to tell others about the sort of person that she was. Nothing explaining how kind she was, how warm or interesting she was, how she loved to look at the stars, how she could teach anyone about anything, how she made life fun, or how she lived. Nothing about her as a person, or about her life, only a name and the years that she had lived. And every other grave is exactly the same. None of them actually say anything about any of the people that are buried underneath of them. So then, what exactly is the point of them at all? How are people supposed to remember the dead and cherish those that once lived, when all they can see are names and numbers? Human memories can be frail and unreliable. People's minds can even fabricate false ones. And beyond even that, no one can know every single other person, especially those that came before them. And yet, they're supposed to be able to remember everyone else just from the names and numbers carved into these stones. It's completely and totally unreasonable. It's stupid. And yet, unreasonable as it is, this is how it is for humans. Perhaps it's because I am a monster that I can't make sense of this. Maybe to humans themselves, it goes beyond this. It must only be an issue to me since I am not human. Even though I admit that, though, I wonder. No, I know. Asha would have agreed. She would have thought it was sad too, that it was completely unreasonable. Well, after crouching there, thinking about that sort of thing, Rel eventually stood up and decided to do one last thing for Asha. Removing their scarf, they bend down once more, then begin to wrap the gravestone in it. They finish by tying the scarf into a ribbon, keeping it firmly held in place around the gravestone. It was intended to look nice, but due to how the scarf looks, it does not at all. With the myriad holes, and how it looks like fire at the end of it, it looks incredibly bad to them. Biting their lip, they decide to gift one final thing to it, since the scarf looks terrible in their eyes. Rel lifts their hands to their head and removes their hat. They slowly lower their trembling hands, and after giving it one tiny last little hug, they gingerly place the hat on top of the gravestone. Unlike with the scarf, they cannot fasten it into place, however. And so, they simply force it to stay on there. Using their ability, they twist the universe to their own wishes, and make it so that their hat can never be removed from Asha's gravestone. Rel stands up afterwards, backing away and looking at the grave one last time. Despite their intentions, the gravestone looks like a mockery now. With a silly-looking hat and a ratty-looking scarf tied around it. If they didn't do it themselves, they would have thought someone might be mocking Asha. And yet, they can't bring themselves to remove either of them. Instead, they leave. Teleporting away, they go back to the apartment that the two used to share. The place that Rel slept, ate in, and lived at for over a full year. After giving it a quick look over, they quickly see that none of the furniture has been taken away yet. Everything remains exactly where it was, down to the bloodstains now on the carpet. Not wanting to give everything up, not wanting to part with everything that had been part of the only true life they'd ever known, they make a sudden decision. Looking past everything contained in the world, they open a rip in space-time, creating a doorway to a brand new world. A world that was contained into a very small space, a sort of pocket dimension. One that they had only just created by willing it into existence. After verifying that it was exactly as intended and imagined, Rel begins to move every piece of furniture in the apartment into that space. Lifting most of them with invisible hands, they slowly but surely empty the apartment out, leaving only the pre-installed things, such as the stove and shower. They take everything they can. Stepping out of the apartment for the final time, they look back upon it from the inside of their own personal world. Memories of all they had ever truly known flash before their eyes, and they relive each moment in the span of a few seconds. The first time they met, the first time that they ate together, the first time the two of them played a board game together, when she taught them how to read and write, when she had them tell her their birthday, when she celebrated it so cheerfully and made a huge cake, the time that she took them fishing, the day they saw the leaves begin to turn color, the time that they saw and appreciated the snowfall for the first time, when the two of them held a flower viewing party in the fragrant spring, when they went swimming and camping in the summertime. So many moments that would never again be repeated. A thread severed and never to be repaired. And just like that, they closed the rip. Shutting the door, they closed their eyes as well, knowing full well that the apartment would never again be visited. It would never be warm again. Forcing their despair to the back of their mind for just a bit longer, they managed to turn around, looking at the mess of furniture. Their eyes land on the dresser full of her clothing. So they walk into it. They walk over to it and open one of the drawers. Reaching in, they clutch at one of Asha's favorite shirts, quickly letting it fall back in. They swallow, biting their lip, and force themselves not to cry again. One deep breath later, they look back down at the clothing in that drawer. As they stare down at all of her shirts, they make a decision to finally do what Asha had tried to get them to do multiple times in the past. One that they had always been afraid to do. They remove their shirt, noting that how unlike Asha's, there are no distinct features on it, no bumps whatsoever, as smooth as the cutting board that she used to chop vegetables and meat on. It was like that all over their body, having almost no features at all, like a doll, just like a doll. Essentially, their body was just an oversized doll. Unable to ignore this fact that they had always known deep down, the monster named Rel could do nothing except sigh. And after doing so, they chose one of the shirts in the drawer, along with pants that had been in one of the others, a long-sleeved black sweater, along with an ordinary pair of jeans. Both were far too big for them, and so instead of shrinking them to fit, they made their own body grow to the size that they would need for that purpose. Far taller in an instant, they waste no time in putting the clothing on, yet still find themselves lacking. Taking a pair of black socks, they put them on, and then moved to the rack that the shoes always sat on. Shoes that they had never worn, not even once. Deciding on a pair of black boots, they slipped them on easily, zipping and buckling them afterwards. Once finishing, they walk over to the large mirror that Asha always looked into every single day after getting dressed. They tilt their head as they stare at their own image, feeling strange. Is this me? The image of themselves in their head now completely shattered. They stare at their reflection, half expecting it to start to move. It remains as still as they do, though, reflecting most of their own image back to them. They blink once, twice, and another 5 times. It really is. Continuing to stare, they realize that the clothes even still smell like how hers always did. This was only natural, since she always used the same things when washing and drying clothes. Even so, it made Rel slightly happy. From that point on, however, everything gets a little spotty. Rel. No, you know what? I'm finished with writing it that way. I was going to go through all of it like that, but since I've already done a poor job in hiding it, I may as well just quit. Not to mention that my apartment is the only place that any of this writing will ever be found. Who else could it have been? Regardless, from that point on, everything gets a bit spotty. I could force myself to remember easily, of course, but I really don't want to. Just like how until now, I didn't even think of simply making myself write it in a perfectly acceptable and correct way. A way that wouldn't even reveal who had written it. It's too late for that now. After that, after all of that, I spent around a year just moping around in that space. In my own little world, in my own lonely hell. Doing nothing but laying around, drowning in my despair, thinking of her, remembering her, trying and failing to recreate some of the things we used to do together, and sleeping. Was it a year, actually? It may have been far longer than that. Regardless, at one point, I had a dream, as I tended to. A dream that was different from all of the others, however. It's been a very long time, so I don't remember exactly what happened in it. All I remember is that I saw her once more, and that upon waking up, I found that I was no longer as sad as I once was. I'm sure that in that dream, she said something to me. Multiple things, encouraging me and doing her best to lift my spirits. Even if it wasn't really her, and only a piece of my own subconscious, it still helped. It inspired me to go outside once again, to try living once again. Unable to bear going back to the old one with her now not in it, I resolved to instead go to a brand new one. And so, opening a rip, I did exactly that. After adjusting my appearance as I did during some of the times I went out with Asha, I walked right in. I spent a few days homeless there in that world, simply exploring it at my own leisure, after once again giving myself the ability to eat. After the 5th day there, I realized after exiting a store that as I had been doing from the beginning, I can give myself money, but it did not have to be limited to what I needed. I could simply do what I wanted, as I used to always do, without thinking of consequences or limiting myself. And so, bringing into existence a large suitcase full of money, I went to a nice set of apartment buildings located in the center of a city that I no longer remember the name of. Once there, I quickly got into contact with the owner of the buildings. After being presented with over 1 million in cash for a set of buildings worth no more than 500,000 in total, he quickly and easily accepted the offer. All deeds of ownership were quickly transferred to me, and the false identity of myself that I forced into the records of the world. Just like that, I had a new home. One cold and devoid of all warmth, but a home nonetheless. I chose the final door on the highest floor of the tallest building for myself, wanting to be as far away from anyone as I could possibly be. Once I stepped inside, I saw how empty it was, and decided to leave it that way for a few weeks. Over the course of those weeks, I also learned that 2 other people resided in that building. There were no tenants beside those 2, not even in any of the other buildings. I chose to let those 2 stay, and since I had no need of any money nor material wealth of any sort, I decided that they would not have to pay anything to me to continue staying. I did not know this at the time, but this was inconceivable to the people living there. After the 2 told a few of their friends about this, I began to receive many, many applications to live in those buildings. Within just a single week, every room was filled, and they still are to this day. Unable and not wanting to continue managing it, I leave it to someone else now. Someone that I do not know even the name nor appearance of. I do know, however, that the non-payment system I put into place still persists. And as I am still in my room here, I wonder, do rumors about me still persist as well? Not once has anyone ever come knocking at my door, and yet, I think it would be interesting if people still talked about the mysterious owner of these apartments. Perhaps in the past people have come, some kids, or maybe even authorities, had come to check if I am still here. If somehow, after over 800 years had passed, I could somehow still be alive. Regardless, I would not and do not remember. Taking the story back out of the present for a moment, in the past back then, I explored that city after settling myself in. And going back to the present once more, I'm sad to say, I no longer remember nearly anything about it. Not its name, its population, the layout of it. Nothing. Back in the past, I got bored of it quickly then too, even though I tried so hard. Despite how I brought all of her furniture out of my world and into that apartment, regardless of how I tried to fill the space, it felt empty. And so instead of using it as a home, I began to use it instead as a home base, a place I would return to after exploring other worlds. How many worlds, one may wonder? I don't want to count, but it was over 1,000 easily. I went adventuring, saw many different worlds, and experienced many different things. I made other friends, some I thought would be lifelong, and yet, all too soon, in that very first world, I realized a simple fact once more. Lifelong for me is not the same for everyone else. Humans are mortal, and I am not. Unable to die, I was forced to watch as the people that I had called friends slowly died off and left me alone once again. Leaving for another world, I tried once more, only to meet with the same result. Despite how wondrous and happy things would be at first, everything would always, no matter what, end the same way. Even when I found others that were a bit like me, when I discovered other monsters, it still remained that way. None of them were truly, unconditionally immortal in the same way that I was. Even the ones called vampires could be killed through certain specific methods. Ghosts could be forced to pass on. Demons could be purified or outright killed. Even gods, living or not, could die out. If people stopped believing in them, or through specific methods, or even through intense battle. No matter what, no matter who I talked to, they would always, always leave me. And so, I stopped sticking around. I stopped opening up to anyone. I would still explore. I would still try to make friends. And so whenever everything in a world had come to a close, whenever whatever was going on had finished, or even if nothing had been going on, I would simply leave after a while. Without a word and without a trace, I would vanish. After repeating this hundreds upon hundreds of times, I eventually began to think about it, about how sad it was making me, and about how lonely I was. And so I began to think about how I was made. And I decided to do something similar. If no one else similar to me existed, then I could simply make one. That is what I thought, and that is exactly what I did. Forming an image of them in my mind beforehand, I created a being as androgynous in appearance as I am, devoid of many features, with a doll-like body similar to mine. I brought them to life in the middle of my bedroom. Yes, it was right there, in front of my bed, that I willed them into being. After doing so, however, I thought perhaps it was not wise to allow any other beings to have the same amount of limitless power that I do. And so, instead of gifting them with that, I chose to gift them with something similar, yet less powerful. Shape-shifting. That would be their ability. And so it was. The person... Give me a moment. That person is probably the one reading this, and already knows this part of the story. On the chance that they perhaps are not, however, I will continue and elaborate a bit. In the same way that I was first created, I designed them on a piece of paper, carefully drawing out all of their features, and using my highlighters to color parts of them in black and gray. I set their picture down and brought them into being directly from it. Unlike with my creation, however, I did not need to destroy an entire planet to do so. Again, I simply willed them into being. Upon watching them form, I realized that perhaps their appearance being entirely black and white may be strange. I found it charming, however, so I left it that way. And as they opened their pitch black eyes for the very first time, I decided their name would be Jekka, a name devoid of meaning and chosen completely on a whim, just like mine. And one that Asha might say sounded nice. Again, just like mine. And even though they were indeed created to be my friend, I would still give them a choice in the matter. I would let them have their own free will, and allow them to make all of their own decisions. It would be boring otherwise, as Asha might say. After relaying this to them, their response to me was immediate. Of course, I will never leave your side willingly, Master. Somehow, despite me not wanting that, They instantly became devoted to me, completely and totally, willing to do anything for me in a heartbeat. And so, we spent time together, just as they had proclaimed. They would never willingly leave my side, even going so far as to sleep in the same bed with me, in the way that I once did with Asha. As we went out and did things, however, our appearances would turn heads. Mine alone was usually enough to do so, unless I went to a world in which pastel hair is more common. Together, however, we were unmatched no matter where we went. Eventually, it began even to make Jekka uncomfortable. After only 2 weeks of existing, they asked me for something for the first time. They asked me to add color to their appearance. Agreeing to do so, I took them to a world consumed by stasis, unable to rot away. The one I was born into, now devoid of anything, even air. Unable to rot due to even the beings made to make that happen. Everything in it remained exactly as it was back then, back when I was first formed, and even further before that. Or perhaps it was able to rot, and I had somehow accidentally put it into stasis. Regardless of which, I do not care either way. After taking them there, I began to pull color out of the myriad surroundings immediately in my sight. I blessed their hair with the dark yellow that the sun became near sunset. Their eyes received one color each, their left receiving the color of the fading blue sky, and their right the light gray of the clouds above. And finally, though it could always be replaced with something else, I gave the bright green color of the leaves and the trees to the stripes on their outfit. Thinking I was done, I asked them how they liked everything. They smiled at me, but yet was not satisfied. I am thankful for all of this, Master, but I would like a touch of skin color as well, if it would not be too much trouble. If it is, then please do not. It's no trouble at all. One moment, please. Not wanting to deviate too much from my own, I chose to gift them the color of a flower petal nearby. Still close to having nothing, yet having a small tinge of color now, they became satisfied with this addition to their appearance. And so the Jekka that now persists to this day was completed. Despite how strange it must have been, Jekka never questioned where that place was or why I took them there specifically. Not even once. I would not have minded them asking at all, but they seemed to think and act like it was a forbidden action. Yet nothing should have been or felt forbidden between us. Between this, their ordinary deference to me, and their referring to me as master, no matter how many times I said that they do not need to do that, the realization slowly began to dawn upon me. They did not think of me as a friend at all. No matter what we did or where we went, no matter how much time passed, they continued acting solely as a servant. They would almost never ask for anything or share their thoughts, intending only to act as an extension of my control. But that was not what I wanted at all. They were supposed to be my friend, not my servant nor underling. I gave them free will, and yet that was only in case they decided did not want anything to do with me. It was not for this, not at all. And so, I began to become annoyed with them. When that annoyance became too much to bear, I did something that I now regret. I sent them away. Forcing myself not to cry as I did, I scolded them. I told them that they were not to return to me until they were their own person, not until they had grown, had journeys of their own, had formed their own likes and dislikes, had their own opinions, wants, and desires, not until they could form lasting relationships with others around them and pay attention to anyone other than me. And so, with a look far sadder than I had ever seen on their face before, they departed. I was around. No, perhaps I will check. All right. I was exactly 751 years old at that time. I am now 1,573 years old. My Jekka still has not returned. I waited. I'm still waiting. I was always waiting. Every now and then, I would check on them. I believe that they have long since done everything I asked of them. They did so in the very first world they visited, in my eyes. But they do not believe so, and therefore they do not, have not, and will not return. They could at any time, at any moment, yet do not believe that they're good enough. Are they happier without me, I wonder? I am definitely not happy. About 100 years after I first sent Jekka away, or perhaps even less than that, the feelings of despair and agony began to return to me. Feelings I had not felt so strongly since when Asha first left me began to fill up my being once more. They came back and have not left since. At first, it was fun to simply visit new worlds, to see new places and talk to new people. Now though, it's not. It isn't fun at all. It's not the same. It all feels so repetitive, no matter what I try. I can go anywhere, see any place I wish to, do anything I could ever want to. Because of this, everything has lost its shine. Outside of dying, nothing is outside the realm of possibility for me. If I wished to, I could see a dragon that had been long asleep tear through the island it was sleeping under. I could visit a world that had just newly formed, or I could visit one that is just barely surviving after having been annihilated by warfare. I could watch people in a realm considered fantasy effortlessly cast spells, or I could visit one considered science fiction and ride aboard a high-tech spacecraft. And I have, multiple times, each. And, again, since I can go anywhere, since I can see anything. After a point, it all became dull. Nothing can be new anymore. I've seen all that there is to see, experienced all that I may as well experience. No worlds that I can think of sound interesting to me in the slightest anymore. Even fiddling with my own appearance brings nothing new. Forcing myself to be 7 feet tall, adding extra slits to my eyes, and letting my hair grow out to the length where it touches the floor. In the end, none of this changed everything. I feel as though nothing will ever change these feelings. Even if my Jekka were to return to me, I feel as though I am too far gone. I will always wait for them, but once they return, they will probably just leave again. It would be for the best. Here, they will only stagnate, just as I am, living in what may as well be stasis, just like the world I was created in. I can barely even speak to the others anymore. I don't wish to. All I do now is play video games here in this room. Most barely interest me, and yet it's all I can do. I don't have the energy or willpower to go to, or even think of other worlds to explore. I simply leave it to the minds of others, going through their creations and feeling more empty inside with each one that I complete. Normally, now, I do not even leave this room. Come to think of it, when I did 3 days ago, that was the first time I had left this room in over 300 years. I would not have even done so had that letter not been slipped under my doorstep. I do not care to find it, so instead of doing so, I will just force myself to remember it all. Hello. First of all, don't try to find out who I am, please. And if you go against my wishes, perhaps you could help me, or not. There would be no point to it, and I don't think you would. That aside, if you go to a certain world at this time, you'll find a young girl there by the name of Ch00-02. She looks a bit like the girl you used to love, Ch00-02. She even acts in a similar way. Their souls are probably even the same color. I know you might not, but I think it would be in both your and her best interests if you did go and pay her a visit. Her life might not be the same if you don't. No one's will. Thanks. That was all that was there. No name attached. Doing as the writer instructed me not to, I decided to find out who had written it. After all, there was information written on there that only I should have known. The answer I received was surprising. But it doesn't matter to whoever will read this, so I will not say anything further. Instead, I will admit that I did as it said. I went to that world, and I met the girl named Kema. She was exactly as described, and that's all I will say on the matter. Cheka, if you do read this, and it's at a point in time where Kema is still around, I feel as if the two of you would become good friends if given an opportunity to. Perhaps you could be as Asha and I once were, or perhaps not. Regardless, I would like to close this out. I believe that it has become long enough. Far too long, in fact. A better letter would be just a page or two long, not as long as I have made this. In fact, I don't think I can even call this a letter anymore. When I print this and leave it here, it will have become a small book. Well then, for my final words here, I want you to know that if you do end up reading this, I'm happy that you finally returned. However, I do not want you to look for me. The reason for that would be that you would never find me. An eternity would be spent and nothing would be shown for it. And the reason for that is that if you find this and not me, then I have finally found a way to make myself disappear. As that, for many, hundreds of years now, has been all I want. I want to disappear without a trace. I want to stop existing. If someone besides Jekka finds this, please don't worry too much about any of it. I don't matter that much. I'll never do anything besides stagnate and possibly disappear after all. It would be nice if I could indeed see Kimmel once more. She did remind me so much of Asha. However, it would be better for everyone if that didn't happen. If I could just disappear, every world and universe out there would be better off. Something like me should have never existed to begin with. Whoever finds this, I hope that you can be happy with your existence. And Jekka, please, I hope that you will love yourself. I hope with every ounce of my being that you do not fall into the same endless pit of despair that I did. Please be happy. And that was chapter 2. So there's 3 and 4 left to go, but oh my god, my throat hurts and it's too I'll have to save it for next time. I'm gonna have to split this reading into 2 parts. 2 parts for the first book. Ugh. gonna take me forever to get through their readings of all of. Ah! Jana! Thank you for the 4 months! Yippee! That's okay. I'll put the VOD up eventually, and Twitch auto-saves VODs, so if you want to listen. And if anyone wants to continue, if anyone was interested. Oh my god, Takoyaki donation, the first one! Besides mine. Yay! 10,000 points wasted, let's go! Anyway, if anyone wants to read it on their own. Hold on. That's not showing, right? Okay. I have it saved somewhere. Hold on. I'll be doing readings of all the others parts too. But like, if you want to do that before then, and also if you want to see what characters look like, because I have reference pictures of most of them up. Oh my god, where is it? Here it is! Okay. Hold on a second. Yay! There's the link. To VOD viewers, good luck. Yeah! Thank you for saying so. I got 2 cups of water to prepare myself for this, but I was so focused on the reading I forgot to drink most of the time. The second one is completely untouched. I gotta do better next time. Ah! There he is! Thank you for the 3 months! That said, it is 2 AM and I don't think I can continue. I'm gonna have to split this, so next Sunday, 3 and 4. Stay tuned or read ahead. I don't care. Either way, thank you for coming, thank you for listening, thank you for reading, thank you for being interested. Thank you, everybody. Also, I was trying to do voices to make it more clear. I hope that worked out. I'm not good at doing voices. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Stretch a bit because I didn't stretch during that. Live audible version. You're welcome. Okay. So with that, I'm gonna head off. I look forward to next time. Good night, good morning, or good day, depending on where you are. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye. Oh, wait, before I go. One more time. Happy Ch00-anniversary! Everyone say happy Ch00-anniversary. It was her stream anniversary today. Very important. Yay! Okay. Yeah. Okay, good night, goodbye. Goodbye for real. Bye bye.